Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Deadline Day live stream. It feels like these come around so quick from the last ones, but we're live again on local TV across all of our Facebook pages and YouTube pages, and now on GPI in the National World, Liverpool World, Bristol World, we're everywhere. So there's obviously 3 hours left of the January transfer window. We'll be with you all the way up until the deadline around 11. Well, it's 10:59 if you want to be pedantic, but about 11 o'clock. And there's still plenty of deals to be completed, plenty of rumours flying around, and we're here to keep you up to date with everything as it happens. Coming up, we've got a wide range of guests throughout the evening. We've got 2 beautiful humans with us right now as well, who we'll get to very shortly. But we've got some regular faces as well, fans across the country, journalists who cover teams across our region. At 8:30, in about half an hour's time, we'll be talking to Michael Plant from Manchester World. We'll also, an hour later, be talking to Will Rooney from Liverpool World to talk all things Liverpool and Everton. That's just after 9:30. Later on, we'll be hearing from National World's Jason Jones, and then we'll wrap up with Newcastle World as the deadline closes. Joining me now, though, Bernard Deneen from the In Good Company podcast, Manchester City fan. Bernard, a very good evening to you, mate.
Good evening, mate. Hope you're okay. Bit livelier than last January, I think, this, isn't it? Just a little bit.
It is a lot more lively. I mean, usually I'm a bit sort of like, oh, deadline day. It's a bit, but this year's actually been quite exciting. I've quite enjoyed it. And obviously as well, Billy, Wolves fan, Billy Dobson. Hello, Billy. How are you?
I'm very good, David. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Not a lot of incomings going on at Wolves. Are you quite sad about Adama Traore leaving?
Yeah, it's sad to see him go, but I think, like you said, the bigger story at Wolves is no incomings, and I think the fans have had their little bit to say about that on social media.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's quite disappointing because you've had a decent start to the season as well under Bruno Lage, so maybe a little bit of investment there could have come in the right way. We are going to move on to Manchester United and Manchester City very shortly. We will be joined by Kai Sherlock, Manchester United fan, momentarily as well. Well, speak of the devil and he shall appear. Kai Sherlock from the Busby Way podcast. Good evening, mate. How are you?
Yes, I'm good, thanks, David. How are you?
I'm good, mate. You couldn't have timed that any better.
Literally,
good. When you watch it back tonight, you'll see you couldn't have timed it any better. Yeah. As I was saying, we will get into Manchester United and Manchester City very shortly. But first things first, let's look at some of the bigger deals that have happened already in the transfer window. One in particular that I want to start with is quite a nice story. A few years you'll remember when we done the Euro Exposition podcast, the Euro 2020 in 2021 over the summer. And one of the really sad moments of that was when Christian Eriksen had a cardiac arrest and was taken off the pitch, and he hasn't played since. Well, today he signs for Brentford. It's a really nice story. He's on a 6-month deal. Bernard, first things first, how are you feeling about Christian Eriksen being back in the game?
I think it's great. I mean, obviously, the people are still worrying about whether, obviously, it should be done. I mean, some countries will, some countries won't. But I think it's great. I mean, as long as all the medical staff know what they're doing. I mean, I'm not saying during this COVID crisis we've had full confidence in what we're being told by medical people. Let's be honest about it. But yeah, it's great for him. I mean, and as long as his family's fine with it and everything's fine, and what a great coup for Brentford. I think just do that little extra bit of class to add to the bit of steel they've got. I think it's great as long as everyone's happy. And I say I don't foresee any problems. There's a lot cleverer people than me know the ins and outs of pacemakers and these heart monitor things and stuff. So no, I'm fine. I think it's great for him and great for Brentford.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you base it on the player himself. Brentford are signing him. It's fantastic for Brentford. It's a really nice story, and as you say, as long as everything is all, I say above board, but for him, you're all okay, and that's the main thing. Kai, when he steps onto the pitch, are you going to be at all worried about him playing, or how do you feel about him coming back?
I mean, it's like Bernard said, it's great if he's fit and he's great and he's healthy and he can play. Perfect. I mean, Brentford have got themselves a great player on their hands. The only thing that was stopping him, he was still in that Denmark team. He was still getting regular minutes for Inter before the incident. So I mean, if he's still got his football ability, which I mean, you would assume that he does, Brentford have picked up a really, really good signing there. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I probably will be slightly worried, and it could happen at any time. There's no saying it's going to happen in that first game back. It could happen in 6 months' time. You just don't know. It's one of those things. But yeah, as long as the proper training's in place and like the defibrillators are pitch side in most stadiums, which they are in the Premier League. I know there's the regulation in Serie A that stopped him playing, which is why why Inter Milan ultimately had to release him from his contract. maybe should that be something that Premier League does look into? Maybe, who knows? I mean, the safety of the players should come first. But yeah, it's a worrying one, and I think time will tell how it goes. Because I think if Eriksen's not feeling up to it with the thing he's had fitted in his heart, I think he'll know. And it might just be down to medical staff at sometimes have to put him out of his misery because he might not want to retire from the football game.
Absolutely, yeah. You'd like to think that so far so good in terms of medicals and things like that, but there is definitely going to be a real sort of cautious nature with him. Particularly, we've spoken loads, Ben, you in particular, on the Box to Box podcast week to week about player welfare and things like that. He's got to really be looked after. Billy, in terms of his impact at Brentford, what sort of player do you think Brentford are getting, and will it help them? They're sort of all right in terms of relegation danger, but do you think it'll help them kick on and get it even further safety?
Yeah, I think, like Kai touched on, if he's still got his top level ability, then there's no doubt that Brentford are getting a very good player there. I think when you look at Brentford from a neutral's point of view, they have their front two with Tony and Mbeumo. But despite that, they don't really have any attacking outlets. You don't really feel that they're going to get goals from anywhere else on the pitch. So putting Eriksen into that midfield three, having him as kind of a link between the front two and the midfield, is probably exactly what Brentford need at the minute. Like I said, they're not in relegation danger, but a few more defeats and they might be dragged into that battle. So I think it's a really good signing and probably the one position that Brentford needed to strengthen.
Yeah, there's obviously, as you say, things can turn around very, very quickly in the Premier League, and they may not look like in that much danger at the moment, but that can change very, very quickly indeed. Let's just think about this from a wider standpoint, Bernard, because we've seen a lot of. I mean, I think there was 3 games at the weekend stopped, maybe even 4 games stopped, and sadly a fan passed away at the was at the Preston game, I think. How dangerous is this? And you know, you look at as Kai mentioned, in the Italian leagues and Serie A, their regulations are forced into to get rid of him. Should he be allowed to play for another team?
Well, he's not coming to a quiet league, is he? He's not coming to a non-pressurised league. That is probably the down thing of this. I mean, you know, it's not just, you know, we don't obviously we call leagues farmers' league and insult them, don't we? But it is high pressure. As I say, Brentford are okay at the moment, as I say. But if they do drop, if they do sort of start going into that bottom area, if you like, I mean, the pressure will be on, and the pressure will be on to play him. The pressure will be on to Eriksen to sort of help. Keep them afloat. So that is a problem. But as I said, I mean, these incidents with the fans. Was it a Fulham fan died? Or was it a Fulham fan died over the weekend? Yeah. You know, and I think this is all linked in with general health of the country and general health of the worldwide. Everyone worldwide. I think this COVID thing has got so many knock-on effects to people's health, and I think that's why we're seeing it. I think it's having an effect that people aren't even realising. You know, and everyone seems to try and go back to normal now. So from a fan's point of view, this is probably why we're seeing an upturn in these incidents at grounds, which I'm sure they were publicised before. I'm sure it's not just now we're publicising them, and we didn't before. I'm sure that's the reason. So, yeah, it is a bit of a worry. So I was quite happy, and I'm still happy that obviously everyone knows what they're doing. But as I said, sometimes you know, I've lost a little bit of faith in medical practitioners over the last 18 months or so, personally, from the incidents I've seen and been involved in. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. But as I say, we've got all the stuff there to make sure he's going to be okay. But it's interesting, isn't it, how one country can say no, you can't do it, and another country said, yeah, it's fine, you can do it. From, you know, in a modern world like this as well. We're not talking, you know, from say an African nation to Europe. We're talking 2 European countries have totally different views on things, which is quite unusual.
Yeah, but I think we kind of spoke about something similar on the Box to Box podcast as well this week yourself, Bernard, when we're talking about Chelsea's players not being able to play against Lille, but then Lille players keep on playing against Chelsea. Like some sort of clarity on a world level, if possible, please. We're not going to change anything on transfer deadline day show, of course, but we'll try our best. I want to talk about another pretty strange deal that seems to now be going ahead. We heard earlier on today that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang was leaving Arsenal, or was allowed to leave Arsenal. He then travels to Barcelona to, well, at the time, we weren't sure if the deal was going ahead. He said he was just visiting with family when it looked like the deal was down the drain. And now the deal has been agreed and he's going. Kai, for you, in terms of the player that Barcelona are getting, is this a good deal for them?
It depends which Aubameyang turns up. If it's the Aubameyang of a few years back, then they're probably getting their hands on a good player, especially with the likes of Adama Traore supporting him. But if they're getting the Aubameyang that's been playing for Arsenal this season, then his attitude just hasn't been up to it this year. I don't know. I'm not an Arsenal fan, so I can't see it from their perspective. But I know I've seen a lot of people liking him on social media, a bit like Anthony Martial. He's on that big wage, but his attitude just isn't good enough to be at a football club to a football club that needs him to have a good attitude. He can't just sail through at a club like that, especially when they're struggling. Especially with the money he's earning. If Barcelona are paying him any sort of wage close to that, he needs to be stepping up compared to what he's been at Arsenal, this season, because he hasn't played a great deal. He hasn't scored of a great deal. I liken it slightly to like Ozil. He got the big contract at Arsenal, and then that seemed to be it. His head just seemed to be up in the clouds. Thought he'd made it and could sit back for a while. So yeah, I mean, again, time will tell on this one. We'll see whether he's a good sign for Barcelona. But is he what Barcelona need right now? I mean, have they really got that out and out goal scorer? Probably not. I mean, I can't think off the top of my head who's really there that would bang the goals in for Barcelona. Especially since they loaned Griezmann out to Atletico. So, I mean, if they're getting him on a free contract, on a free, just paying the contract, then we'll see. Hopefully, he'll be a good player for him.
Yeah, he's a bit of a strange one, isn't he? You'll have to see how it pans out for him over there in La Liga. Billy, for you, obviously, there's been a lot of talk at Arsenal about him. He was stripped of the captaincy. He missed training as well. And ended up being stripped of the captaincy for going abroad. He's had other issues in the past. Has he got a bit of an attitude problem, do you think? And is he a bit of a risk for Barcelona to be taken on?
It is. I think it is a bit of a risk for Barcelona. Obviously, we don't know the ins and outs of what exactly has gone on at Arsenal. And with the recent form he showed on the pitch, he's not exactly been dynamite for Arsenal. And it feels a very... a player who's not massively in favour, and they may be paying a bit over the odds on the wages. But I think it is a little bit of a risk. But if he can get up to his form and back to his best, then it could be a very good signing for Barcelona.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bernard, of course, they signed someone very familiar to you in the summer, in Sergio Aguero, who was unfortunately forced to retire again. It was a heart issue with Aguero as well.
Yeah.
That's cropping up again. So Aubameyang going there. He's no Sergio Aguero, Bernard, is he?
not quite. No,
not quite.
It's interesting. They seem to be obviously they're an interesting team. Barcelona. They're scurrying around trying to get players in. Not particular. Right, they've got obviously a young man from us who's got potential, but not quite at it. Not quite the finished article yet, for instance. And they are scurrying around. And I think obviously Arsenal, I mean, they were trying to get rid of Aubameyang, and they wouldn't pay any of the salary and stuff like this. I thought it was a funny way of approaching it, wasn't it? Of saying, all right, we're not going to give him any percentage, and so that's where it all fell down, I think, because they refused to pay a percentage, and that is the normal these days, isn't it? But that just shows the sort of state Barcelona are in, trying to sort of negotiate various things that isn't going to cost them too much money. And obviously keep them in the clear of getting into trouble with their own rules and regulations, etc., within the league. So, yeah, but it's interesting. As I say, I'm not overly impressed with Aubameyang. He's going to have to improve vastly, as I say. But they're a bit of a mishmash, Barcelona, at the moment. I think this season's going to be a total washout, isn't it? Let's be honest. I'm not sure where they are in the league. Are they about 6 or 7? I'm not sure where. They're not anywhere near the top of I think they're about 5th, 6th, or 7th, or something like that. So it's going to be a bit of a disaster for him. But it's a strange signing. If I was Barcelona, I would have probably played some of the younger lads rather than risk putting Aubameyang up there. To be honest with you, if they are paying his salary, that is still an expense, isn't it? So I am surprised by Barcelona, but I'm not surprised, if you know what I mean. I am surprised they've done it, but obviously they're just a mishmash at the moment. They need to sort themselves out. They're a big club, and they need to know what they're doing going forward. And at the moment, I don't think they quite do. I think they're just picking and choosing from different pots and seeing what happens. And I don't think that's the way to run a football club.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, Bernard alluded, Kai, there to the sort of regulations, transfer regulations, and the sort of financial limits that Barcelona have got on them. What do you make of those regulations in La Liga? And also, I mean, as Bernard said, is it wise to bring on a big wage like Aubameyang when you're reportedly struggling, can't register players?
I mean, again, liken it to whoever's going to pick up Pogba on a free in the summer. Aubameyang, unfortunately, does bring a circus with him because of his attitude. It's not just you're paying the price of having a goal scorer, but also a goal scorer with a bad attitude. And like Bernard said, I agree. I think you're probably likely to give that to the youth. I know I would prefer that at my club, especially if you've got young talent on the bench, or you've got young talent in that youth system who could thrive. And Aubameyang is effectively stunting that growth. Personally, I don't understand how Barcelona can keep signing players when all of a sudden they can't register them, because all right, they might sign Aubameyang, but will they be to register him? Because how long did it take him to register Ferran Torres? It took him ages, and especially with the transfer window shutting, they're not going to be able to move anyone on or anything like that to be able to sign him on. So, it's all right agreeing this deal and all right signing him, but will they be able to sign him on? I mean, who knows? To be honest with you, I think many people know Barcelona are a complete mess at the moment. They're sat in 5th, 6th in the table. They can't sign players on. All right, I don't know if is Traore definitely signed on with him now, or is it still in? Is he definitely?
I mean, he's signed for Barcelona, hasn't he? But I don't know if he's been registered. That's another story.
Well, exactly. And then so how do they know they're going to do that? I would much prefer, if I was a Barcelona fan, I would much prefer something for them to bring a young prospect through, because they've got a lot of them. They've got a lot of prospects in that squad of Barcelona. They've got Pedri, they've got Fati, they've got some good youth talent in that squad. So why not use it? Why not why sign Aubameyang when that's effectively going to take up one of their places and potentially stunt their growth?
Well, I thought when they got Torres, I thought, well, that was the way they're going. I thought they were going for youngsters and bringing them through, and that's how they're doing it. And this is totally opposite to what I thought the plans were going to be. It's just off the left field. This one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, massively so. It wasn't on the radar at all, was it, before today? And it was on, it was off, and now it's
seems a bit like a panic buy. Almost a bit like a panic buy.
Little bit. And I don't know what they're panicking for.
Like a cow, and they felt like they needed something.
But what are they panicking for? As Bernard said, they're not. I mean, they're in the Europa League.
No,
they missed out in the Champions League. It's a bit of a weird one, but I think Arsenal will be relatively happy. Arteta will anyway. I think. I'm assuming that they've moved him off the wage bill, and he doesn't really need game time. I wonder what it holds for the future of Eddie Nketiah, because he's not signed the contract yet, and whether he now sees a clear path to game time. We'll wait and see. Billy, I want to move on to another one, which is sort of left field again, but again quite a nice story. Lots of rumours about Aaron Ramsey throughout this transfer window. He was going all over the place. He actually ends up at Rangers. I think it's on loan for the rest of the season. Really strange. Not that there's anything wrong with Rangers, but I just assumed he'd end up in the Premier League somewhere. There was reports of like Newcastle and Everton and all that. First of all, do you feel the same as me? Do you think he's gone to Rangers? It's a bit odd. He could play at a higher level.
I think by moving to Rangers, it kind of tells you where he's at the minute. We've seen with Wales in the Euros, he's still got that ability, but the fact that he's not playing regularly at Juventus, maybe he doesn't feel ready to come back to the Premier League just yet. I think if, like you said, there was Newcastle, Everton, Palace, Wolves, Burnley, if any of those teams had picked him up, I think it certainly would have improved their squad. But I think going to Rangers, he should be one of, if not the best player. But he'll be going there as the star man every week. Might have a bit of pressure on him. And we'll just have to wait for him to get up to match fitness before we can really judge whether he's back at his best or not.
Yeah, Bernard, he's obviously a quality player. Was a quality player. for Arsenal. For Juventus, doesn't really do it at Juve as such. You know, he played all right for a season or two, but he didn't really do it at Juve.
Has he been all right injury-wise at Juventus?
He's had a few injuries as well, I think, here and there, dotted about, hasn't he? And that's probably hampered him a little bit. But in terms of this player, I remember when he was being courted by everyone in the Premier League, and Arsenal claimed the signature when he was a youngster at Cardiff City. Do you think he's really kicked on and sort of like met his potential, or has he just fell short?
I think he's been just been hindered by his obviously lack of game time, as in he does pick up these niggly things, doesn't he? He always has done for many years, and I think this Rangers thing is quite a good thing for him, to be honest with you. I think it's a good idea for him to go to Rangers. I think the pressure of moving to, say, someone who's like Everton and Newcastle who need points. I mean, immense pressure to be put on him, and he's got to keep fit, etc. I mean, psychologically and physically, it's a big thing. And I think for him, as I say, he's not at the greatest time at Juve. So, I think it's spot on. I think he's made a very good decision. I'm sure he's obviously not done it on his own. He's talked to his agent and his managers or whoever they get involved with. And I think this is good for Rangers. And again, like similar to the Eriksen thing, I think it's a good move for him at this stage. And I think it's a good move for Rangers. So, I think it's pretty spot on.
Kai, he's straight in at the deep end at Rangers. You know who he's got in his first game on Wednesday?
Celtic.
The Old Firm on Wednesday, and he can play. It's been confirmed he can play on Wednesday. Right. Obviously, the Scottish transfer window doesn't shut until 12 o'clock, whereas England's and several other leagues close at 11. But I mean, what do you reckon that they're going to throw him in at the deep end and let him play in that, or is he on the bench? What's happening?
I mean, you've always got to pick your best team, haven't you? And I think Ramsey's probably will be in that best team. I don't think there's any debate in that. I mean, no disrespect to Rangers, but I think Ramsey goes straight into that team. The issue I want to know is about his wages, because surely he's on about 250 grand a week at Juventus. So I remember when he left, he was on something silly at Juventus. So are Rangers covering all that salary? Do we know? Has that been reported? Or
I think they're paying, like, what I read was part of his wages. So I'd assume like maybe 10%, 20%. Yeah. Maybe.
Well, if you're a Rangers fan there, or you're part of that Rangers, club who've brought him in, that's a steal. They've got a world-class quality player. We saw him at the Euros, how good he was, who, if he can stay fit, will probably dominate that Scottish division. He'll do really well for Rangers, and they've brought in a top quality player in Aaron Ramsey, and especially when you're not paying much of his wage. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I think most clubs would take him on for 10-20% of his wage. So yeah, I mean, he's one that I won't doubt, if he can stay fit, will definitely set that Scottish league alight. Yeah,
and Billy, for you, in terms of like looking ahead to, I know the World Cup's not in the summer, but if he sort of sticks around at Rangers, the Wales have got an important qualifier coming up as well, haven't they, soon? So he'll be right in the swing of things, aiming for that World Cup. Do you think that's maybe played a part in his thinking?
Yeah, you always see it happening a year before a major tournament. These players who are lacking match sharpness always looking to get a move just to get some game time. And I think with his injury record, it's probably a good thing for him that he's not going into one of the top leagues in Europe. With all due respect to the Scottish League, it's not quite up there with your Italy's and England, Germany. So I think being able to go there, build up your fitness, like we say, he should, if he can showcase his talent, be one of the best players in the league. And he always seems to do well for Wales anyway, but maybe he could take it up another level and drag them to the World Cup in Qatar.
Absolutely, he needs to stay fit, doesn't he, and keep himself active and in that team, because he's a massive part of that Wales team.
It certainly won't matter to Wales what country he plays. Let's be honest about it.
He was getting anyway,
Wales team anyway.
Yeah.
So he could play in Outer Mongolia, and he's still getting the Wales team, so that's no big deal.
He was getting picked half injured and stuff like that at Juve, wasn't he? Like, they just threw him in. Same with Bale, isn't it? I mean, when you've got a generational talent like that, you take the risk, don't you? Let's face it, you take the risk. You throw them in the team. Let's look at some other things that haven't really been confirmed yet or have been off the table. And I want to talk a little bit about Everton, unfortunately. because Everton have been quite active. Obviously, a new manager, Bernard, coming in today. I know I think he took training yesterday and potentially even the day before. But it was only announced today. Everton have confirmed Donny van der Beek coming in on loan, and Kai, I'll get your thoughts on that very shortly. But first of all, this Dele Alli deal that's on and off, it's reported that it's done, and then we're hearing things that Newcastle are trying to hijack the deal. Dele Alli, for you going to Everton under Frank Lampard, who reportedly shared the same agents, which, you know, maybe helped get that deal done potentially. Is that a good move for you, Bernard? What do you think on that one?
I don't think Dele Alli's going to save any problems that Everton have got at the moment, to be honest with you. I think it's a bad. I don't. He may do something, but I don't think he's the sort of guy they need. He doesn't seem to be the sort of guy that, obviously, if Ferguson had stayed in charge, would have been going there. That's for sure. He's not the dogs of war, is he? Sort of attitude. But obviously, Mr. Lampard has had some sort of input on this, and obviously he thinks he can get something out of him, get a tune out of him. I suppose. Obviously, I'm sure, even though he's only just signed on as a manager, he perhaps 2 or 3 days ago was sort of talking on the phone about potential loan deals and stuff like that. But Dele Alli, on the face of it, won't be enough. Danny Van. Obviously, I'll go with Kai on this one. Obviously, he's one of these guys who is loved, even though he didn't obviously get the chance to play that much. So obviously, he's another guy who would have a lot to do at Everton. Everton need a little bit more than that. I think they need a bit more gumption than Danny Van der Beek, whoever he's called, and Dele Alli. Pardon my pronunciation. They're not very good guys at pronouncing these days, but very odd, very odd for me. But as I say, they have to do something, and I'll say they left it very, very late. And I suppose, we'll ask Kai obviously on this Van der Beek guy, but I mean, obviously Dele Alli, I'm not impressed with that signing. I don't know about that. We'll find out off Kai now about the other guy.
Well, just on Dele Alli, I mean, there's reports that the deal will potentially rise to 40 million. Which, I mean, I know he'd probably have to do really well, and he'd have to, I think if Everton ended up paying 40 million, he'd have earned it, if that makes sense. Like, you know, because I'm assuming there'll be like goal clauses in there and maybe qualifying for Europe, winning the FA Cup or some stuff like that. So if Everton have done stuff like that, they've done well, then obviously he's going to be sort of worth it if he's played and made an impact, if you like. But I think the initial fee is 10 million in instalments, so quite low risk. But I'm with you, Bernard. Not really the type of player that you want going into a relegation battle for me. I think Everton need a bit more. But we'll come on to that in a sec. Kai, for you, obviously, I know you've been talking a lot about Donny van der Beek for weeks and weeks on those Busby Way podcast, which if you haven't seen, and also the In Good Company podcast, you can watch on Manchester TV weekly, Sunday nights usually. But this week it'll be midweek, obviously, with no games being on. But in terms of Donny van der Beek, Kai, I mean, I know you personally and Chris as well have been screaming out for him to play more games and have a bit of a chance at Manchester United. He hasn't been given that opportunity. But is this a perfect chance for him to, you know, go to Everton, play well, and then force his way back into the team at Old Trafford?
I mean, it is. I'm one of these people, I think I'm actually in the minority of Man United fans where I don't understand the hype behind Donny van der Beek. I don't get it. I just don't understand why everyone... I know this is probably going to sound like I'm in a massive minority, but I don't understand why Manchester United fans cry out for him to play every single week. Every single time he's played, he's been bang average. He has, and he hasn't given a reason to start at the next game. If you're a player that's on the fringe of a squad and you sat on the bench and you're thinking, I need to be playing every week here, I want to be playing every week, you need to be coming off that bench and making an impact. But every time he's been given the opportunity to start, he's been given the opportunity to sit on the bench, you know, and come off, he's done nothing. I mean, I could probably count on 3 fingers the amount of good games I've seen Donny van der Beek have for Man United. All right, I know he's only had 4 starts in 18 months, but regardless, I mean, he might be. I'm sure he's a lovely lad. I'm sure he's a lovely bloke, and people like him. But in terms of his footballing ability, I've just not seen it at Man United. Whether it's the system that don't suit him, you know, maybe if Ten Hag comes in the summer, that might change. That's maybe why they've only loaned him for the 6 months. Get him some game time, keep him happy, then bring him back in when the new manager's here, whoever that happens to be, whether it's Pochettino, it's Ten Hag, you know, even right away for Rangnick stays.
Roy Hodgson.
Yeah, Robertson. Yeah, Sam Allardyce if we wanted to stay up. But I mean, I don't. Yes, it's a good thing that he's gone. I think because I think when it came out with the reports that there was 11 players that wanted to leave Manchester United, I think every fan would be right in assuming that he'd be one of them. Same with Jesse Lingard, who reportedly fallen away from Newcastle, but I'm sure we'll touch on that at some point, or you will at some point tonight. But the Van de Beek going to Everton, I think it removes that negativity from the squad. Yeah, I think United have done that really well this transfer window. I know they've only loaned players out, but they've cut down on overrated, underperforming, overpaid players who are just sitting on the bench every week, who really don't want to be at the club anymore and don't give effort for the club when they do get given the chance. So, I think it's a good move on all parties. I think he'll probably do well for Everton, depending on what system Lampard plays. But I do think that Everton midfield now is looking very, very slow. You look at that, they've got Dele Alli, they've got Van de Beek, and they've got that Allen in central midfield. And that is, it's not the quickest of midfield. I won't be backing that if it was an 100-metre sprint, that is for sure. But we'll see. If it's technical footballers that Lampard wants, that's what he's got in Van de Beek. He's great at passing a ball, and he can pass a ball, but he'll always pass it sideways. There'll be no forward passing from Donny Van de Beek. So if you're an Everton fan watching this, look forward to sideways passing from Donny Van de
Beek. Rave reviews from Kai Sherlock on Donny Van de Beek. That was music to my ears, mate. Music to my ears. We're going to be joined very shortly by Michael Plant from Manchester World, so we will talk more Manchester United. But just before we bring him in, Billy, going back to Everton and Lampard, do you think it's fair on him? He's had, maybe 24, 48 hours to bring his players in, and do you think he's got enough there to keep Everton up?
I think Everton have got enough to stay up, but not due to the quality in their squad. I think it's due to a lack of quality in other squads. And I think with having such little time to actually bring these players in, that probably says a lot more about Everton than about luck on Lampard or anything. It's a very Everton thing to do. And I think Dele Alli is up there with an Everton signing, if you like, taking a punt on somebody for big money. And maybe it's a last minute move where they're scrapping about to find something. But to bring in a manager and give him a day or two to bring in his players, and you're in a relegation fight, probably a closer relegation fight than they've been in for many years, it seems like a bit chaotic and they're not planning anything. And if it backfires on them, then they can't really complain because they're the ones who put themselves in this situation.
Yeah, they went from sacking the director of football to handing basically the keys of the city to Rafa Benitez to then take them back 3 days later. It's just, how are you supposed to, survive in this day and age like that? It's impossible. But as we said, Michael Plant joins us now from Manchester World. Michael, good evening. Hope you're well.
Hi guys, you all right?
Very well here, mate. We're very well indeed. We've got Bernard, who's a Manchester City fan, Kai, who's a Manchester United fan, then two will probably be grilling you throughout the night, so I hope you're prepared. Billy's here as well, who's a Wolves fan. He might be a little bit more lenient with you, but we'll come to that in a sec. But I want to start, Michael, by talking Jesse Lingard. It's been quite a big story today. It's been on, it's been off, not even just today, throughout the whole transfer window, really. What is the latest on him, and what do you think is eventually going to happen with him?
Well, I've been told that he is staying at United. That there's no more movement in that he's going to remain until the end of the season. I've also been told that he wants to leave and wants to move to London in the summer, to a London club in the summer. So yeah, that one looks like it's dead. And as you say, it's gone on and all January really to get to the final kind of hours of the window and for it only to be wrapped up now is a bit of a surprise. But I think from Lingard's point of view, it's a bit disappointing, really. I think that he, I think he has shown the quality, remember how well he played last year at West Ham. I think there's no doubt in the quality and the ability he has. But I think, and I suspect that he's probably not going to play a huge amount in the second half of the season at United, which just impacts him in a number of ways, particularly with the World Cup year coming up. So yeah, for now, I think that one's done. I think he will remain at United for the end of the season.
Just in terms of the World Cup, Michael, you mentioned it there, and we've just had the chat a bit earlier about Aaron Ramsey and his move. Do you think he may have forced his hand a little bit more had the World Cup been coming this summer as opposed to November, where obviously his contract runs out, he'll have a chance to put a few games together, wherever that may be, whether it be West Ham, Newcastle United, whatever. Do you think he might have pushed a little bit more had that been the case?
Difficult one to say, really. I mean, I think he wants to go, and the club are stopping him going. I saw it reported elsewhere as well that Ralph Rangnick said he could go as well. So there's a little bit of up in the air about where exactly this decision is coming from. But it's difficult to say how much he would have forced it. I don't really totally know how much he has forced it himself, if I am totally honest. I know that he does want to move on, and he doesn't see himself at the moment anyway signing a new deal in the summer. These things can change very quickly, and it all takes is for a couple of injuries. And if he does get a little run in the team and he plays well, these things can change very quickly. But I suspect that really this is just the slow kind of beginning of the end for him really at United. And it's a shame that, especially for a boyhood United fan who's come through the youth system, that it's kind of just his United career is just kind of dwindled out like this. I think it's a real shame for everyone, really.
Yeah, he's obviously. We joke about it before we started that he's been young forever. Like he's still, you still assume he's like 23, 24. He's still, he's on the brink of getting into the first team. Kai, for you, Lingard. I mean, how do you feel about how his career has panned out? And obviously, he looks set to leave, as Michael says, in the summer. And do you think it's fair that he's, don't want to say forced to stay at the club, because that's probably not the case. They probably just haven't been able to agree a deal. He's probably is free to leave. But how do you feel about how his situation's panned out?
I mean, yeah, like you say, it is a shame that his United career has dwindled out like it has, because when you see a youth player come through the ranks, you want them to do well. You look at Marcus Rashford and people who've come through the youth. You want them to do well, and you want them to be a good player for the club, because they've come through the ranks. They've obviously stayed there for a reason. But hearing the news that if he wants to go, why keep it? Why keep him at the club? It's not exactly like we're short in where Lingard can play. It's a position we've probably actually got surplus amount of players in that position. So why keep him? Because the whole negativity that was around the club a few months back was because players wanted to leave. There was reports of that 11 players wanted to leave, 13 players wanted to leave, however many it was. Which, quite frankly, the fact that's been leaked to the news is a disgrace anyway. But why bother keeping him? Why bother keeping a player at a club who's only going to bring the morale down? And he's probably going to sit on the bench, and you can pay him £100,000+ a week. I mean, I know obviously, like they mentioned, the injuries, and if there's a few injuries, he might get some game time. But the gifts, I mean, you don't go into a season expecting players to get injured. You want to try and keep them fit. That's the whole point. You don't try and work them into the ground to the point where they get injured. And I understand freak things happen, where Jesse Lingard might play. But if you don't want to be at the club, I'd rather a youth player play there. Given it's a similar thing to Aubameyang. Give a youth player an opportunity. If a player doesn't want to be at a club, I don't want to see them in a Man United shirt if he doesn't want to be there. All right, I understand he gets cut a bit of slack because he's an academy product, but if he doesn't want to be at a club, I mean, for me, I don't see why Manchester United have even considered keeping him. I'd rather see someone like that Hannibal come through when he comes back from AFCON, or when he's trained a few more times with the first team, something like that. But I mean, yeah, it's disappointing the way his career's panned out and the way it's dwindled out. But yeah, I don't see why Man United are even trying to keep him.
I suspect, just to take you up,
go on, Michael.
Just to take you up on one of those, but I do suspect that part of the reason is potentially with Anthony Martial and Donny van de Beek leaving. I do wonder whether there's a little bit of concern that this thought of, we've got all these players to get rid of, right? Let's get rid of them all. And then what happens if there is a COVID outbreak and injury? I think that I suspect that maybe if Martial and van de Beek, let's say, were staying, that position on Lingard could be a little bit different.
Okay. I just think it's a bit bizarre how, with him going in the summer, I assume you mentioned the London club, it probably is preferred destination will be West Ham. Is there any other London clubs do you know that are in for him at all, or is it just West Ham that seem to be sniffing around Jesse Lingard?
Well, he's been linked with everyone, hasn't he? Generally, it's easier to say the Premier League clubs he hasn't been linked with in the last month. Spurs were linked. I mean, West Ham have been pretty vocal in how much they. I mean, Stuart Pearce has gone on. It's just gone public on how much he wants to get him in. So, I suspect it is West Ham's kind of the main interest from that point of view. Yeah.
Right.
I think, guys, when you look at some of these guys moving, like Dele Alli to place like Everton and stuff. I mean, Lingard. I mean, is it a wage problem, Michael? Because let's face it, Everton should snatch. Should just try and grab him. Newcastle should try and grab him. He was a revelation at West Ham. I was very impressed. I'm not his biggest fan. I mean, obviously from where I sit, but I watched him for West Ham and I thought he was excellent. I mean, obviously, why are these? You end up with Dele Alli at Everton, Danny Van der Beek moving, stuff like this, and all these guys moving to these teams. But Lingard, for me, is exceptional. He's probably the only name on all these transfers that I'm looking at that I think is quite a talented player, and yet no one is it because he's on too much wages? What is the problem? Surely someone, even Everton or Newcastle, and certainly Newcastle should have had a problem with wages, should they, Mike? I mean, Michael, they should. Why has it not happened? Because I think he's the outstanding talent of the people that have been moving.
Well, I would agree with you. I think you do look at someone like Dele Alli, and there's questions there. Van der Beek as well, and I think Lingard, if he was to go to a club, let's say Everton, just because of those two players, I think he'd almost be an instant success, wouldn't he? And just how brilliant he was last year for West Ham has been slightly forgotten, and the regression in his performances and his career over the course of this season, it's been such a shame that you have that talent that was there at West Ham last year. Did you see him sitting on the bench? I mean, he hasn't started a Premier League game all season. It's incredible, really. No, I agree with you. I don't know. If I'm totally honest, I don't know if money is a factor. I doubt it. I mean, United with all these deals, Van der Beek and Martial have insisted that the club pay the wages. So I suspect that if it was a low move, that the club would have to pay the wages anyway. So maybe potentially that is a small factor in it. But it does seem like it's United who have stopped the transfer happening, rather than the player or another club stopping it from progressing.
Just a quick question, Michael, in terms of United's outgoings, because we've seen a lot of players leave Man United this summer, and most of them have been on loan, pretty much all of them. Is that probably to do with the fact that they haven't decided on the new manager and what the new manager's plans are wanting to be? And because obviously there's talks of the permanent clause being added into some loan deals, but is that why most of them have gone out on loan, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's probably a number of factors in it, isn't it? I think there's probably that January is just more difficult to move players on. I think you're right. I think the uncertainty about the manager. I think the fact that United have a bit of a strange position in that some of these players, let's take Van der Beek, for instance, his position right now, I think he's potentially very different than how it'll be in the summer, because he could return to a squad in the summer that doesn't have Paul Pogba. And suddenly his position and status in that team is a completely different picture without Pogba in the squad. So I think there's a number of factors in it. But yeah, I think the manager situation is probably one as well. Don't know a huge amount about the manager stuff now. I mean, it seems to be the club are kind of focusing on January and getting transfers and stuff done. But obviously there were reports last week that there's 4 names in the running. So yeah, I don't know a huge amount about that at the moment. But yeah, I think there's a number of factors that have led to more loans than signings in January.
And in terms of incomings, then, is that how come we haven't seen many even rumoured to United? Because there was talks about Zakaria, but he's obviously gone to Juventus. It said, I know Romano reported that he was interested. He was on United's list, but United never made an official bid. Do you know if there's any reason why they didn't make an official bid? Because you'd look at someone like Zakaria as an ideal candidate for what Manchester United need in that midfield.
Yeah, I mean, I said for a while that I think United definitely need a holding midfielder, someone who breaks up the play and gives the ball elsewhere. I think Scott McTominay, I think Fred in their own right are good players and have real qualities and bring things to the team. But I don't think either of them is a natural sitter. I mean, you only have to watch United's games this season to see how easy it is for teams to play through them. So I think they should have gone for a player like Zakaria, like I'm struggling to think. Haidara, for instance, someone who, as I say, their main job on the pitch is to stop the opposition attacks from building in midfield, breaking up the play. In terms of decision round that, who knows really? I'm not 100% sure on the reasons why they didn't make a move. But as I say, I think that the manager issue is definitely probably a factor in that, because a player signing this doesn't even know who the manager will be in a couple of months' time as well. There's a bit of a doubt about exactly how much responsibility Ralf Rangnick has on transfers right now. And it's the answer I came back to kind of earlier, that January is it's a difficult month, isn't it, to get these things done, because let's say RB Leipzig let Haidara go, then they've suddenly got a job to go out and replace him as well. So I think that's that same answer really, is that January is just a really difficult window.
Right.
Yeah, I think it lacks a lot of clarity, doesn't it, in terms of the management, and they may not know who the manager's going to be, and if Ralph Rangnick is in charge of getting transfers, but he doesn't know who the next manager's going to be, so therefore he doesn't know the style of play, he doesn't know who's going to fit the system. Very, very difficult for Manchester United to bring in players. We'll probably come back to United very shortly, but let's just move on to City very quickly. Michael, I'm sure Bernard's gasping to ask you a couple of things about his beloved Manchester City as well. But first of all, the only real deal that they've done is Julian Alvarez from River Plate. Tell us what you know about him and what City fans can expect.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously played his whole career in South America. We don't have a huge amount of kind of South American coverage over here, but I mean, he's a player who, obviously, attack-minded player, can play centrally as a striker, number 10, can play out wide as well, which I think is interesting. I think a little maybe nod into Pep Guardiola and the way he sees this City team developing, rather than signing a classic centre forward, a Harry Kane and Erling Haaland. He's going for a player who can drop deep and play in a couple of different roles. Alvarez was linked with, I mean, I spent the first couple of weeks of this month talking about how United were being linked with him. And then suddenly out of the blue, City came in, got the deal wrapped up. Well, I say wrapped up, but they got the deal concluded pretty quickly. And then it took about a week for it to be 100% confirmed. Obviously confirmed today. Believed to be, I think it's in around 17 million, which for a player whose reputation seemed like a relatively cheap price. He's been signed now today on deadline day. He's going to be loaned back to his current club, but River Plate, until the end of the season. He'll remain there until July. City said today. There were reports elsewhere that could be pushed back depending on River Plate's success and how far they go in the Copa Libertadores. Don't know if there's any truth in that, but there was a suggestion that if they progress far in that actually it could be pushed back to around November. Alvarez moving to City. I don't know if there's any truth in that, but yeah, that's what we know for now. And I think it's really just encouraging signing for City. And City have, over the last couple of years, have developed a reputation for signing emerging talents who maybe aren't the very best in the world right now, but give it a couple of years and they emerge to be kind of top talents. I think Kevin De Bruyne, when he signed, he wasn't one of the best players in the world, and I mean, there's no doubt he is now. So yeah, I think it's really encouraging and a really exciting signing for City fans. Man, I'll come in there, Michael. I mean, obviously, what interests me, as you said, we're thinking it could be November if these get far in this cup that they're in. The interesting thing for me, obviously, Pep leaves us at the end of next season. Obviously, this young lad's coming into City. Do you think it says anything about the fact that Pep might be keen on signing a couple of years extra to sort of go along with this sort of younger signing, or do you think that would probably happen anyway? Obviously, as City fans, obviously a lot of guys are still hoping Haaland's going to come in the summer. I don't think there's a cat in hell's chance, to be honest with you. I don't think he'll fit the profile wage-wise, etc., that City go for. But yeah, I mean, does that say anything about Pep, or does it just say the fact of Pep might be going and we'll get someone who will do the job anyway when Pep does go? There's going to be a dip, of course, when Pep goes, but it's just a typical City signing, and that's how we do things. Or do you think it's a bit more Pep would love to work with this guy, and if he comes in November, he's only got about 4 or 5 months left, 5 or 6 months left, so perhaps he'll extend for another couple of years and build a younger team again. What do you think?
I feel like you're hoping that's the answer.
I can tell you through good knowledge that they've been speaking about Guardiola's contract for about 6 months on our podcast. They're desperate.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, God, yeah, what an amazing manager. But yeah, I mean, I think every club kind of in the Premier League, I don't think it's obviously just the manager's decision who signs. I think there's a number of people involved in these decisions. The manager's involved, director of football, people like this. So I don't think the signing itself gives any real indication on Pep Guardiola in his future. I mean, he's asked about it quite a lot in press conferences, and he doesn't really answer it. He just bats it away where possible. And I remember he got to, I think it was 200 Premier League games earlier this season, and they asked him, will you do another 200? He said no. And he does, he's made comments in the past almost implying that he won't be there for another kind of 4 or 5 years. He's implied that. He's never specifically said it, but I suspect that it's I still think he'll be there next season. I'll put it like that. I don't think he'll be leaving in the summer. Although I do think if he can get a Champions League medal, it might change his outlook on things a little bit. But yeah, I don't think the signing itself gives any more indication on Pep's future. No.
Yeah, I must admit, obviously, personally, I think he'll go. I don't think he'll extend. But I said that 2 years ago. So much. I used to do a program on it and the fact he was going. So much I know about it. But the thing is, Alvarez as well, with him being a winger, he can play on the wing. I did jokingly put on Twitter today that that's no good. He'll play him on the wing, so we still won't have a striker because they'll just play him out wide all the time. So we won't be.
That's what we were going to come to, actually, Bernard, funny enough, because we were going to ask Michael, obviously, about, he's a striker, he can play on the wing. There's a lot of talk, as you know, Bernard, people say all the time, City should have signed the striker. Maybe not so much when you're winning 12 games in a row, but when before that, it's like City should have signed the striker. Michael, for you, should they have signed the striker, or are they right to wait till the summer? And if they do wait till the summer, are they going to sign one then?
I feel like I've been answering and writing about this and answering this, from August, July time. But and the answer has changed, I think, since then. I mean, I was a firm believer in the summer that I thought they should have gone and signed a striker. I thought they should have prioritised Harry Kane over Jack Grealish. And about September, October time, that opinion looked justified, that the City were playing pretty well in games, but not always converting all the chances they were creating. And then since they lost 2-0 to Palace at the end of October, they've just been absolutely fantastic. And I mean, if you think of City over the last, let's say, 12 months, they've played largely without a striker over the last 12 months, and they've just been absolutely incredible. They've blown teams away constantly without playing with a striker. So do they need a striker? I've come around to thinking, no, I don't think they do, because they are just so good the way they play. And he almost plays, Pep Guardiola almost plays, it's almost like this, people keep talking about Ralph Rangnick and this 4-2-2-2 system. I sometimes think Pep Guardiola, the shades of that about the way he plays with City, and there's almost two kind of midfielders who sit a bit deeper, two almost who push up, and one will drop in the attack and one will move in, and someone else will drop in and take a position, and it just rotates constantly. And then you've got two wide wingers who stretch the opposition and drag them really wide. So it's a pretty long-winded answer to say, and I just think he's got his tactics playing without a striker absolutely perfect at the moment. He's blown teams away. I mean, if you win 12 Premier League games in a row, to suggest there's anything you need to do this a bit differently is, there's no way that's the case. So no, I've come around to thinking an opinion that have changed since the summer, that no, I don't think they do need to sign a striker in my humble opinion.
It was a very long no.
Yeah,
no, we love it, mate. We love it. I think you're right, as you say. It was all the talk, wasn't it, in the summer, Bernard? Sign a striker. They need Harry Kane. Obviously not.
The thing with Pep is he always adapts. He's always been, for me, since he joined City, we've always been 2 or 3 players short of his unique of what he wanted. We've always been 2, and perhaps at the moment we're probably 3 or 4 players short, generally squad wise, because the squad's a bit thin on the ground, despite what people think at the moment. And he just adapts, and obviously that's what he tends to do. And if someone doesn't fall in the wage structure, etc., we just move on. And Pep just looks at it and said, "Well, I'll adapt," and that's all he's ever been doing over the last 3 or 4 seasons. He's been adapting to the fact that he's not quite got the sort of 2 players for each position. I mean, we certainly haven't on the striker, but had that for a couple of years now on the striker role, and that's what he said he wanted when he first came to City. So he just adapts and changes how football's played, and that's what he's done for the Premier League, hasn't it?
Absolutely,
it's actually so. I hadn't covered City before this season, and in covering them, I think that's the thing I've been most impressed with Pep Guardiola throughout the season. That he just, whatever kind of, nothing phases him. There's no obstacle that he almost he cares about. He just shrugs it off. And I mean, for instance, he's played this whole season with 3 fullbacks. I mean, Zinchenko's had his injury problems as well. And I remember there was a game went to, and John Stones was starting right back, and I thought to myself, oh, this could be a bit difficult. You know, I could see City having a few problems, and I mean, and it was the game against Leeds and the 1-7-0. I've been so impressed that it doesn't seem to matter almost what players he plays. They all are so. They know the system so well, and they perfect it, just absolutely perfect. I've got it perfected. They roll them out, and they just play sublimely, almost no matter what 11 are on the pitch. So I've been hugely impressed with that.
Just before we move on, I just want to come back to what probably a bit of a development story back at Manchester United. Dean Henderson, there's been a lot of links, Michael, in terms of where he may end up. Do you see him leaving the club, whether it be permanent or more likely temporary, before the window shuts?
Yeah, I mean, I asked United about this earlier today, and I didn't get a response in terms of Dean Henderson. So I don't know, make of that what you want, but I don't know is the total honest answer. I'd be surprised if. I mean, I look at Dean Henderson, and I think he's far too good a goalkeeper to be sitting on the bench, and he's just. I mean, it's the same about Lingard that we talked about earlier, but I think that's the only one that there's a bit of legs that could kind of continue tonight for United. But I think really that if United can get a good fee for Henderson, it maybe is the opportunity to cash in. And I've said this a while about United. Knowing when to sell your players is as much a part of recruitment as bringing in good players. And that maybe if they can get a good fee for Henderson now, maybe they should look to cash in on it if possible.
Definitely, absolutely. The latest I read was Watford, and now allegedly interested. So certainly something to look out for. Billy, you've been a trooper there, mate. You've sat and listened to these talk about Manchester United and Manchester City. But I just want to come back to you before we go, because Adama Traore has left Wolves to go to Barcelona, and I want to get your thoughts. I know we spoke about it briefly earlier on. I want to get your thoughts on that. And also, I read a stat today which is astounding. He's been at Wolves for 4 years, and he scored 11 goals in 4 years.
Against City, is it? I think.
Yeah, I enjoyed a few of them, Bernard, I'll be honest.
Yeah. He always turns up against United.
I enjoyed a few of them. I mean, I think as well, what I want to ask you is, are sales of baby oil going to go down in Wolverhampton? He doused himself in that, didn't he, a lot? But now, what are your thoughts on it, Billy?
Well, I didn't know it was that low, 11 goals. I know they've been few and far between. It certainly leaves a hole in the team. He offers you something completely different to everybody else. Maybe if he's not having the best game, he still picks up the ball and everyone's on the edge of the seat thinking he might go on one of his trademark 50, 60-yard runs where he just shrugs people off for fun. We've replaced him with Chiquinho, who was signed for €3 million, I think it was. It's not the most thrilling signing. I think we're trying to unearth another Pedro Neto, signing them for cheap from Portugal and bringing them through ourselves, especially with the former Trinquet as well, who's not really been of any use to us this season. We're especially not getting any money either at the minute. We have to wait till the summer to get paid for it. It does leave us a little bit short, but like I said, with Neto, he's coming back next month, hopefully. And Hwang should also be back. So we do have options, but we are a bit of an injury crisis away from having to play our kids in the starting 11.
Yeah, I mean, you've just mentioned him there as well. Hwang Hee-chan is on a permanent deal now at Wolves. And I wanted to ask you what you thought about that, because obviously he played quite well on his loan. He looks a good player. There was rumours that Liverpool were sniffing around him as well, should he not sign for Wolves. So how pleased were you that Wolves got that one wrapped up?
He hit the ground running, to be fair. He got 4 goals really early on. But since the end of October, maybe had a 5-week period where we didn't really notice him in games. He plays on the left. Obviously, he's probably more natural up front, but with Jimenez there, he's not going to force him out the team. He had a quiet 5 or 6 weeks, and then he got a hamstring injury at Brighton, which has kept him out since mid-December. And although we're not actually paying Leipzig the £13 million this month, it still feels like a little bit of a risk to be paying so much of our small transfer budget when we've only really seen about 5 good performances from him in his time here. But I'm sure with the way Bruno Lage, we've kind of turned a corner since January. Bruno's got the squad playing a much better style of football. We seem to be a bit more free-flowing compared to what we were in the winter. So I think when he comes back, hopefully we'll see an upturn in form. He may even be playing up front when we've got Neto back on the left, but hopefully he can hit the ground running again.
Absolutely. And in terms of you for the rest of the season, Billy, I mean, you say Hwang hit the ground running, the Wolves didn't really. You were a bit low. I think last time I checked, you were 8th in the league. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah.
I don't really check the league table that much in January, I'll be honest. But in terms of the rest of the season, is it European football that you're aiming for?
I think so. We've got a 4-point gap to Brighton in 9th, and we've 8 points clear of Leicester and Aston Villa. So we've got a little bit of room for a dip. Not that we'd want one, but I think that the frustrating thing for Wolves fans is we're so close to actually pushing up to 4th, we'd say, the United, West Ham, Arsenal, Tottenham. We're so close to pushing those group of clubs. The fact that we're not actually willing to spend any money, and we're giving Bruno Lage 18 players who most of them actually played for us 4 years ago. It's been about 3.5 years since we had a really impressive transfer window. It's a little bit frustrating that we're so close to kicking on, but yet the owners don't seem to want to take that next step to just see what can happen, really, see whether we can get another year in Europe. But I think the fans are all hoping for maybe a Conference League spot, and hopefully we can go on another European run again.
Absolutely, yeah, that'd be nice. Them days were good for Wolves, and fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. Michael, for you, Man United and Manchester City, where do you think, what's the realistic ambition for both? And in terms of trophies, how many do you see them lifting on either side?
Well, I suspect we'll have...
That's a mischievous laugh.
I suspect we'll have some silverware in Manchester by the end of the season. Yeah, I mean, obviously for City, the big one is kind of the Premier League. They've got a 9-point gap at the moment at the top, which you'd say is a pretty healthy gap. But when you consider Liverpool have a game in hand and still have to play City as well, I mean, I know we've spot some maybes, but that could suddenly be 3 points if results go against you. So I don't think it's completely done. I do think City will win the title just because I think I just don't think they'll drop enough points for Liverpool to catch them personally. And then the big one, I suppose, for City is the Champions League. I mean, listen, they're one of the best teams, if not the best team in Europe. They've got the ability to go and do it. It's just whether they can get over the line and achieve it one year. It's just such a difficult competition to win. I think that's proved with City in the last couple of years that they haven't managed to do it. So I mean, they're the big two. Obviously, they're in the FA Cup as well, for all the success Pep's had in cup competitions, I think he's only won the FA Cup once. So I'm sure he'd like to win another one. And then across City, United. I mean, probably the big things, the Champions League place. I know that it's a big deal getting in the top 4 for United, and just the way the club are run and structured, having that guarantee of Champions League money is a big deal. I think considering how poorly they've played really under Ralph Rangnick, it's amazing to think they are currently 4th and in with a really good chance. I think Spurs will be a bit of a worry for them, just how they've been good under Conte, and they've obviously made some impressive signings before the end of the window. So that's going to be the big one for them. I give them very little chance in the Champions League, but I think that they've got a shot at the FA Cup as well, and they really haven't won that very much over the last kind of 15 years or so. So I'm sure they'd like to get their hands on that if possible.
Yeah, definitely. And very quickly, Bernard, for you, what's City's chances in the tournaments that they remain in?
Yeah, well, I think we're not playing that great at the moment, mate. To be honest with you, we won 12 games on the trot and drawn the last one, but we've not been at our best, and I keep expecting us to go up a gear. But so that's a bit of a worry for you all, isn't it? If we do go up a gear from what we've been doing, but we've got to do the Premier League. Of course, we want to do the Champions League as well, but I won't mind the FA Cup. We have underperformed in that, probably because we kept playing Wigan and they kept knocking us out. So I would like the FA Cup. So FA Cup League and the Champions League, I think it'd be a nice treble this year.
Nice treble, wouldn't it? Yeah. Kai, very quickly for yourself, mate, for Manchester United, what's the aim? What's a successful season?
I think, the successful season, top 4. I think anything less will be unsuccessful. Don't get me wrong, I'd love silverware, but I think, it's just beyond the realms of possibilities at the minute with United's position. I mean, it'd be great, don't get me wrong, but there's very, very slim chance I think we'll be going anywhere in that Champions League past Atletico Madrid. United done it before with PSG, we'll see. Old Trafford is sometimes a fortress on them European nights. But I personally, I can't see it. The FA Cup, I mean, who knows? I think as much as it pains me to say, I think the lot is City's this season. I think this is the year they finally do the treble, and that really, really does pain me to say.
Put some respect on Liverpool's name, will you? No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, all of you, for your time. Thank you, Michael. Enjoy the rest of the deadline day. It's quite quiet in your area, as far from Dean Henderson. And thank you, Kai, Bernard, and Billy, for your time as well. As you can see at the bottom, breaking news is Everton are closing in on the signing of Dele Alli, and also we've been seeing that Fulham are interested in Nico Williams from Liverpool, which could have potential. I don't know what the word is, but obviously Liverpool are trying to sign Fabio Carvalho, and that might be linked from Fulham, so we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, we've got some Liverpool and Everton fans coming up in the next hour with my good friend and colleague, Andrew Neelan. We've just lost someone from the bottom there, but it's okay. They're coming in very shortly. We've got Liverpool fans and Everton fans, and we'll also have Will Rooney from Liverpool World to talk about all the latest happenings at Anfield and Goodison, particularly at Everton, where it looked like the Blues were about to lose one of their star players earlier on this month. And the Box to Box podcast spoke about that earlier this month, and we've been keeping an eye on the transfer rumours throughout this month, and we'll show you the clip from that now.
Weird rumours at our place is Alan's going out on loan, which is just ridiculous because we've only got 3 centre midfielders and he's one of them. I don't believe that, but let's see. Another one is Barkley coming back on loan, which, we've just had Benitez. We don't want Barkley back. So that's not a good shout. And then other things, just a lot of activity around Newcastle, isn't there? Because obviously they've got a big wad of cash now. They're linked to everyone. I believe even 41 million offered for Hazard, and that's been accepted, and Hazard's gone, get lost, I'm not going to Newcastle. But from an Everton perspective, we haven't got 41 million, but we'll have them.
Yeah.
That's the main thing that I've seen. Everyone seems to be linked to Newcastle.
I have seen Traore to Arsenal. I've seen that quoted. What are the chances on that?
Well, I hope not. But I've also seen him linked with Barcelona as well. So which one is true? Who knows? But there's obviously the Haaland story. Tanganga apparently might go to Wijnaldum. Has it been linked? Yeah, that's another one. And Rudiger, who have been following for the last couple of weeks.
Costa. I've heard Costa.
Costa's another one. And
not the coffee company, the player. We're talking Diego
Costa. Yeah. And Ericsson, if he comes to Brentford, if that actually happens, it'll be good. But I'm just not sure. It seems a bit random.
Also, now it's not going to be for this window. Apparently, this is going to happen in the summer. But Manchester United are after John McGinn from Aston Villa. Now, Manchester United and Aston Villa, the past few days, they've gotten to know each other very well, having played both in the FA Cup and in the league. Yeah, John McGinn in the summer, apparently. That's going around the rumour mill at the moment.
Sorry, lads, struggling to get myself unmuted there. Welcome back to the Transfer Deadline Show. I'm your host, Andrew Neelan, and I'm joined with Paul from the Shankly Gates podcast, Dom from the West Midlands podcast, and Mike from the Gladys Beat podcast. Mike, busy last hour for you. How are we feeling in this Transfer Deadline, mate?
Yeah, so it's been interesting. Obviously, the clip we just heard then was talking about Alan going. That would have always been a bit of a strange one for me because particularly in the centre of the pitch, we've been weak this season, both in ball retention and winning back possession in midfield. So losing one of our more combative midfielders wouldn't have made sense. I actually thought we would probably go and buy a number 6 today, or someone that was more adept at pressing. We seem to have gone out and got two more traditionally number 10s, possibly to suit Lampard's style a little bit more. But it's been a bit of a crazy one, to be honest, because we haven't got a director of football, we haven't had a manager for the last week, and so it's been a bit of the last week's been wondering who's going to make the signings, if we're going to make them, but we've known all along that we needed to make some, because it's looking a bit dangerous down the bottom there.
Yeah, we'll come back to talk more Everton later. Obviously, we'll have Will Rooney from Liverpool World joining us to talk all things Liverpool and Everton. Dom, I'll come up to you on this one, mate. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, is he about to do what Peter Odemwingie could never do and force a move from Arsenal to Barcelona on deadline day? Do you think it's going to happen?
I think it is. It looks like it. Last I heard is that the deal's back on. I think the advantage that he had on Odemwingie is that Odemwingie turned up like 15 minutes before the deadline at Loftus Road. Whereas Aubameyang flew out yesterday. He's just been sat with his bags packed, waiting for a medical, basically. And it sounds like he's been given the go ahead, and it's quite an interesting deal. They've got a bit of a mix of forwards now, with obviously Adama Traore and Aubameyang as well, but then Luke De Jong, Memphis Depay. They've got so many forwards now at Barcelona, so definitely having Xavi a bunch of options. Aubameyang is quite becoming one of my favourite Premier League players in terms of how funny the press around him is. He's always in the papers, isn't he, Aubameyang?
Yeah, Paul, for you, mate, what's the move that's most excited you today? There's been a couple not gone through. What's been the most exciting story for you? Oh. Do you hear Paul there or not? Or is that just...
No, I wasn't getting anything from...
No. Sorry, Paul, mate. Well, I'll come to you on it, Mike. What's been your most exciting move? Obviously, of course, apart from Everton today.
Well, I think it's sort of a lot of the excitement from the Premier League's come from your own club, Andy, because obviously there's been a lot of intrigue around what Newcastle were going to do, how hard they were going to press, and it seems as though there's been a lot of failed attempts for you today to throw around some weight. I think you've done some good business, and I think you've probably done enough to sort of stay in the Premiership this season. But I think the Jesse Lingard, just the impact that he had, in terms of a missed sign, and the impact he had at West Ham last season, it just seemed like a bit of a no-brainer for yourselves to give yourself a little bit more of an attacking option. I don't know how you feel about that one in particular, but
yeah, I've been good, mate. To be honest, would have loved to see Lingard come through the doors. I think he's exactly what we've needed, because Joe Willock's been quiet on that front, where he was bringing the goals in more or less the same time when Jesse was at West Ham last season. Hasn't been that similar player to us, and we've missed the goals this season. So, of course, it's a knock, but I can't really complain with how this window's been for Newcastle. I think we've signed who we've needed, and anything else that was additional today would have been great. Still waiting on Dan Burn being confirmed, but apparently that everything's fine with that, so that should be confirmed more or less within the next hour, I would expect. Dom, we'll move on. Villa, been quite the busy window for you. Steven Gerrard starting to assemble his Villa side. Who's been your most impactful signature so far, do you think?
Obviously the two main signings that we've made this window are Philippe Coutinho and Luca Dean, and I'd probably say impactful is probably Luca Dean, because I think Coutinho, whenever he's played, has just looked absolutely mercurial with his quality. Obviously against United, he comes on and gets a goal and an assist, but you sort of don't want to get ahead of yourself. He's still got a lot of fitness issues to work out. He's not completed a full 19 like over a year or something. So he needs a lot of bedding in. I think the winter break will do him some good in getting some regular training in, getting to know the teammates, maybe moving out the Belfry Hotel and getting his own place and stuff like that. It'll be good for him, and he needs that. In terms of players who have just sort of plugged straight in and just done the business instantly, is Luca Dean. He's only played 2 games for us, but he's been one of our best players in both. Obviously, Matt Target, who we've let go to Newcastle on loan, he was an okay player in that position, but he wasn't particularly inspiring, and especially with the way Gerrard wanted to play, he really didn't fit that philosophy. And we've gone and got Dini, who does fit that philosophy, under the noses of Everton, who obviously have let him go because of an issue with Rafa Benitez, and then sacked Rafa Benitez a week later, which is not one that I think Mark will be too happy about, really. But yeah, he's been brilliant. He's started straight into the team. He's got fantastic quality, fantastic pedigree, and I think he'll be a critical player for us for the season ahead, to be honest, as will Coutinho.
Mike, we'll come straight to you then. How's that been for you, losing Luca Dean to only sack Rafa a couple of days later? I mean, everyone's questioning it. How is it for you as an Everton fan?
It sort of sums up exactly how the club's been run for the past 5 years, to be honest. And it just seems directionless, because we then go and replace him with, a left back from Ukraine who is 22. Obviously, I think the idea is probably right, but to have sacked your director of football, a couple of weeks earlier, and then sacked the manager who got rid of that left back and arguably signed those 2 players, it seemed a bit ridiculous. I knew that we'd been linked with Mikolenko and Patterson for a while, so I don't think they were necessarily Rafa signings. And as Dom said, I mean, Luca Dean's a great left back. I think he's been one of our most consistent performers, and probably one of the few players that I wouldn't have replaced had I had my way. But over the last 18 months, he had looked quite defensively suspect at times. He's definitely better going forward than he is going the other way. But it obviously depends on what system you play with that, because there's a good bit of midfield cover there at Aston Villa with the likes of Douglas Luiz, and the defence is, a fairly solid back 4. So I think his defensive frailties might have been more a symptom of our overall lack of ability, to be honest. But yeah, I'd just like to give a special shout out. You said who's my favourite signing today. I think Weghorst got the day off to a great start, didn't he? Because if you can't appreciate Burnley signing a 6'6" centre forward, then what can you appreciate in football?
Yeah, it is the most Burnley signing. I mean, he was the only man that could replace Chris Wood with, really, wasn't he? So I'm excited to see how the hold-up play and Burnley ball works with Weghorst up front. I mean, I'm a bit jealous. Weghorst is a striker that's proven he's got a bit of pedigree about him, and probably is the better striker between him and Chris Wood. But Dom, I want to come to you. How surprised were you when you saw that the Digne deal was going to actually come through, and that Everton were signing probably one of the best players to yourselves?
I mean, I was very surprised. I've always liked Digne in terms of players. You'd be like, who's a good Premier League player? You like to sign for Villa, you'd be like, Digne. But then you could see another club who's doing better than Villa and playing in Europe, going for Digne. And I just think we pounced. I think it was one of those deals where we've been involved in other deals for other players, such as Yves Bissouma, where there've been multiple clubs in the race, or Rodrigo Bentancur is probably a better example of that, where we basically were fleeced by his agent to get him sold to Tottenham, where our interest was overblown just to get him sold, and that's happened. But Digne was one where we've sniffed an opportunity. There's not sporting directors sniffed an opportunity, and we've got in there with money, and we've come out with the player. And I was really surprised, but really positively surprised. We always wanted a left back, and I knew we were going to get a left back, but I just thought that left back might be Aaron Hickey from Bologna, who I still think might join in the summer as a bit of competition, especially if Target does go to Newcastle permanently. But yeah, I was really surprised, and I'm really over the moon. I think it's brilliant business. It's a proper top quality player in our back 4, and I think the other players in our back 4 are sort of like good players, are like younger players establishing themselves in the Premier League. Digne adds a lot of experience to our backline, a lot of quality as well. So I'm really happy to have him.
Dom, I'll stick with you on the topic of left backs, as you mentioned Matt Target. Were you surprised that it was a loan deal to Newcastle? Would you expect that to maybe turn into maybe an obligation option to buy at the end of the season?
Yeah, I was surprised because I first read it as a loan with an option to buy, and that didn't surprise me at all. But I've now found out that there wasn't an option to buy. They were negotiating on, but it hasn't happened. So it's just a straight loan. I'd want to know how much of a loan fee we've managed to get out of out of Newcastle, to be honest, because everyone knows that everyone who's selling players to Newcastle is trying to get as much money as possible. So I'd like to see how much the loan fee was. That'd be a point of interest to me. But no, it didn't surprise me too much. I mean, I'd like to say we'd have 2 decent players for every position, but you can only really afford to have that luxury when you're in the Europa League or a similar European competition, in my opinion. And with Dean, your target's never going to get a game. We've not even got any domestic cup competitions left to compete in, so barring an injury to Dean, your target was never really going to get a game. And then we've also got Ashley Young, who can play left back. Courtney Horse has played left back in the Championship. Tyrone Mings used to be a left back. But also we've got a top academy talent from our under-23s called Ben Christine, who's just come back from an injury and was the Exeter's youngest ever player, like 15 a couple of years ago. He's fantastic as well. So I think we've got a plethora of options in terms of emergency backup if Dini's gone. But Target's an okay player, will probably be better for you. But then again, I'm surprised you've left Jamal Lewis out of his squad registration because I think he's a decent player. And I wonder what you think about that.
Yeah, I think Lewis will end up in the squad registration. I think there's a couple that will get squeezed out. Your likes of Hendrick, Clark, especially after what happened in the friendly while we were across to Saudi Arabia. I don't know if he's seen it, but he managed to get himself sent off in a friendly game, which is what you always want to see.
It's impressive.
Yeah, especially in the manner he did it as well. He's hooked the Saudi player while he's been on the floor by the looks of it. I mean, the video's not the greatest quality, so you can't really tell, but you can't be getting sent off in those kind of games. Paul, we'll come to you, mate. Are you there? Can we hear you?
Hopefully,
I'm not sure it's coming through great, Paul. No. Still not got you.
It's a little bit like a Dalek at the moment.
Yeah, I have to check my back then.
Mike Van der Beek, he's struggled for game time so far this season at Man United, and the whole time while he's been there. Do you think he can finally come into Everton and impress? Because I mean, when he was at Ajax, I mean, that run that went in the Champions League, when unfortunately they were knocked out by Spurs last minute, he was unbelievable in that side. Do you think he can replicate that sort of form under Lampard?
Well, hopefully. I mean, it's, as I was saying earlier, it's a bit of a strange one in as much as we seem to have signed him because Man United didn't really need him in that position, that number 10. And then we've immediately gone out and bought another number 10. So we've almost made them redundant within the first half an hour of them walking through the door, which, you know, it seems a bit pointless. But I assume that the idea is to play him a little bit deeper. Maybe have Alan as the ball winner and then Ali in the number 10. But, you know, between the two of them, it's definitely 2 moves to revive careers, isn't it? And that's where we're at the minute. We're not going to go out and sign those sorts of players. We're not going to compete with United for those. So in a similar way to Damari Gray has this season, you know, maybe he just needs somewhere to feel appreciated and given a little bit of time to really find his feet and have a solid run in the side. So hopefully he can do that. You know, there's sort of echoes of a little bit like what I imagine you're doing as a club as well. You know, as you said with Matt Target, it's a progress on what you've got at the moment, and sometimes you just need them good Premier League goals, don't you? You know, you brought in Chris Wood. I don't know how he's been playing so far for yourselves, but I think you've got a good balance there because I mean I was really impressed with the fact that you managed to get Bruno Guimaraes. He was one that, you know, he was
nice
probably
start to keep it in.
I think he's one that could probably get into most sides in the Premier League. So to tempt him in, and Kieran Trippier as well, you know, they're 2 players who could be playing for European sides rather than fighting a relegation battle.
Yeah, we've all been joking while Mandy's been away with the squad in Saudi Arabia that Murdard's just went mental with the club credit card. If you told us we were going to get someone like Guimaraes at the start of the window, I wouldn't have believed it. Let's be honest. I mean, for the position we're in, to have beaten off Juventus and Arsenal to get him, I think shows how serious we are. And we've probably flaunted the money that we've got probably a bit early for the situation we're in, but hopefully he can hit the ground running with Big Joe. Right, Paul? we're still like a Dalek, mate. Which is...
Oh man.
Oh, we'll get there eventually.
I'm more impressed by how many different pairs of headphones he owns, to be honest.
He's gone through like 3 already.
Is he living in Dixon's or something?
He's on the blower to like any like nephews and nieces, like, hey, I want your Xbox headphones. Got a football podcast to do.
Mike, while we're laughing, I mean, we can maybe laugh about the whole Dele Alli deal that you have potentially got in place. It's an initial 3 to then rise to 10 mil with the potential to go to 40 mil.
We'll stop at 3, I think. Make it sound even better than it is. I think, to be honest, that the deal to me sounds as though it's probably win-win for both parties. I believe after 20 appearances, we paid £10 million, which he can't play 20 games this season because he's cup tied. So it essentially gets his wages off their books for 6 months, and then we come and we pay them £10 million next season. And then I imagine in order to pay the 40, he probably has to win the Ballon d'Or. We have to win the Club World Cup, and I'll level with you. I'll take a League Cup in my lifetime at this moment. So I don't think we'll end up paying both. 40.
Yeah, that makes 3 of us.
I'm just hoping to stay up this season, so I'm not expecting to pay the full 40 million. Let's put it that way. But it's we have a tendency to have creative financing packages at the moment. We did what I imagine you will do over the next 3 years and spend insane amounts of money rashly. But
well, I would hope it'd be a bit more wisely.
It could be less.
Dom, I'll come to you, mate, because I don't know if you've seen the All or Nothing, the Spurs documentary on Amazon. Mourinho seems to take an instant disliking to Dele Alli.
Yeah.
Do you think Lampard could maybe have the same problems? Do you think a move is what Dele Alli's needed and it'll give him the attitude change?
I think it could go well for him. And if you could take Jose Mourinho and Frank Lampard as managers, right? They have 2 very different man management styles based on the impression I get as a fan. Jose Mourinho can be a lot more tough. He'll, a week in tell you that you're a lazy guy in training and stuff like that. He doesn't mind doing that. Whereas Frank Lampard, much more seems like, anyway, I could be wrong, the kind of puts his arm around you, gives you a pat on the back, pushes you forward kind of manager. And given that the Jose Mourinho thing hasn't worked out for Dele Alli, although for a time, he didn't look that bad under Mourinho, I feel like the Lampard thing will be an experiment of whether he is actually going to make it as a player ever. Because now that he's got that environment where he's coming in as a big name and he's got a manager who's going to back him, because Frank Lampard always backs his players. He did it at Chelsea the whole way through. Even when they weren't even the best players under that transfer ban, he backed them. And I think he'll do the same with Dele Alli. I'm not sure he's going to succeed. I think that he may well get to 19 games and then get sent off to some random club, perhaps in Saudi Arabia. Who knows? And I don't mean up north. Well, I mean over here with the east side. I mean genuinely a little bit further than that. But no, who knows? I think it's a bit of a risk, but I think when you're in Everton's position, you have to take a bit of a risk. I look at their squad and I see pretty uninspiring. There's some good players in there, but they need some big names, some big stars, because the likes of Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin aren't doing that well. And I think Dele Alli is a gamble, but on a free, it's not a bad gamble to take, really.
So we have made our own deadline day transfer ourselves. Paul, unfortunately, with technical issues, can't join us. So we have David back.
Good evening. Oh, nice to be back.
I'll let you here.
I'm in on loan, mate, for the rest of the podcast. Just in on loan. I'm doing a Coutinho.
You get to talk about your club, no, David?
I do, mate. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I mean, Luis Diaz was one we thought was going to happen in the summer, but with other clubs maybe showing interest in him, was Liverpool having their hands forced, having to pull the trigger early and get him in?
Yeah, I think so. I think by all accounts, Klopp's a big fan, and the club were sort of sanctioning a deal, and then Tottenham's interest has kick-started the deal to be happening in January, and I think it's testament to the club again. I mean, there was 60 million being banded around, and they've got that down to 37.5. That's Michael Edwards' little goodbye present, I think, even though Julian Ward took charge of the negotiations. But I think you're absolutely right in terms of they've been forced into making that signing now. I don't think it does anyone any harm, really, in the sense that I think there'll be a decision to make in that front three anyway in the summer, with them all approaching 30. One of probably Mane or Firmino will go. I think Mane needed a bit of competition on the left, and Diaz probably provides that. So it's not a bad thing that they've been forced into it. So yeah, all good here, mate.
Yeah, and Fabio Carvalho as well. He's one that's been linked the last couple of weeks. He's shown he's a class talent at Fulham, flying in the Championship at the minute, top. Do you think he's going to be one for the summer?
Potentially, I think even if a deal was struck today, the rumours say that he wouldn't come until the summer anyway. And I've just been reading that Nico Williams is looking at going to Fulham, and that could potentially link in with this deal. It's another no-brainer, really, isn't it? In terms of like you're getting a cheap player, you're beating the competition by giving them what is in football nowadays a nominal fee, 5 million, 10 million pound, maybe not 10 million, but 5 million is nominal for a player that, if he comes good and plays for you for several years, fantastic, you're over the moon. And if he doesn't, you're probably still going to make your money back on him. It's kind of like when we bought Minamino for 7 million. Like, even if he doesn't do that well, you're probably still going to sell him for 15. More than double your money. Yeah, I think so. I like Minamino. I think he's a good player. He's never going to make it at Liverpool, because we said this when he went out. So he went this time last year, he went out on loan to Southampton. And when he did, Klopp said, like, he's a bit small. He's gone out to Southampton to develop. It's like, he's not going to grow 3 foot at Southampton. Like, he's going to be the same size when he comes back. So yeah, again, mate, it's a no risk deal. One that Liverpool are all over.
Dave, I know you're trying to give Minamino the hard sell here, but I don't think Hasenhüttl's listening.
He's probably not, mate. He's probably not. And we haven't got that much time left, have we? So he's probably not gonna. Gonna go for it again this year. I think he's seen him firsthand. So my spiel isn't probably going to work with Ralph this year.
I think Hasenhüttl's very on his stance that he can't sign players because they can't play in rescheduled games. If you've heard Hasenhüttl's stance on postponed games, yeah, I mean he's going to be breaking down to tears when we turn up. We've signed a whole new team basically. So we've got Will Rooney joining us now from Liverpool World to give us all the latest on Liverpool and Everton. Mike, I'm sure you'll want to be nibbling at his ears to hear what's going on with Everton, if Dele Alli's going to go through, or if my club Newcastle's going to nick it last minute. Will, how are you, mate?
I'm all right, lads. Great listen so far. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so Everton's been the more busy side, certainly today. Is Dele Alli going to happen? Do you think that's a deal that's going to get wrapped up?
You'd think so. As you say, you do worry. You start to worry about hijack, and then you only have to look over to, a couple of days ago, yesterday, wasn't it, Luis Diaz? Obviously, the pool nipped in from Tottenham signed it. That was a little bit underhand, but that's football for you, isn't it? You've got to look after yourself. But no, I think the Lord of Frank Lampard and come to work with him. I think, today we've seen recruiting Donny van der Beek and now Dele Alli. I mean, and then you see the players who are getting linked, like the lad from Real Madrid, Jovic. If Rafa Benitez was still in charge, would these players potentially being linked or coming on deadline day? Perhaps not. So I think already at Everton, we're seeing the immediate impact and law that Frank Lampard's going to bring to the club.
Yeah, Lampard certainly got a job on his hand, I think, whether in terms of maybe turning players' heads that were maybe looking at the exit door, your likes of Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison. Do you think Lampard can make them stable their future at Everton?
Yeah, it sounds like Lampard in his interviews wants to build his team around Calvert-Lewin. I think there was some things said that a few players were going to be looking at who was going to become the next manager and whether they'd make the decision on the future from there. Richarlison next summer, perhaps he might just want to move on naturally. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about PSG last summer and he might only have one season. I mean, he's not playing his way into a deal this season. No, he's been injured, has his niggles, etc. But his form hasn't been the best so far. Richarlison's one. Obviously, Jordan Pickford's another prize asset. Tottenham have been linked with him. even Ben Godfrey, perhaps, he hasn't been as a fantastic season himself. There's a lot of potential there, but you'd like to think now with Lampard in charge, proper manager, proper player. I mean, you can't argue with Frank Lampard if he tells you not doing something right, can you? Because look what he's won in his career. He's won everything possible in his club career. So, yeah, I think that not only is he going to attract players, he's going to keep the prize assets at Everton Football Club.
Mike, have you got any questions for Will?
Well, it's sort of it's not as much a question, but well, you mentioned obviously trying to keep hold of those prized assets, your Richarlisons, Calvert-Lewins, Pickfords. I wouldn't say they're necessarily even prized assets. They're probably the only people that other clubs would take off us at the moment. So it's, that's such has been the level of our business over the past few years that no one would go anywhere near the likes of Alex Iwobi or Fabian Delph or any of the others we've been trying to get rid of for the last 3 years. So I just, in my head, I think I'm almost resigned to needing to lose at least one of them to buy in the players to build on that. I don't know whether you think there's any money in the bank or whether we could do it without, but I just think we might need to cash in on a £70 million for Calvert-Lewin and go and reinvest.
Would it be Calvert-Lewin, or would you rather cash in on Richarlison? Because for me, Richarlison, you don't know what's his best position.
Yeah.
Is he a second striker? Is he better playing as a winger? Is he better playing as a number 10? This is what I mean. Well, Lampard playing as one of his inverted wingers that he plays at Chelsea now and played Calvert-Lewin around. So it's interesting, isn't it, where he might fit in?
Yeah, I think, I don't know why I feel like Richarlison's a more saleable asset in terms of the money you get. I think with Mbappe looking like he might be going to Real Madrid in the summer, that seems to be the narrative that they're trying to, flaunt. Although I think if you're taking a Brazilian winger at the minute, you'd be looking at Leeds and going for Rafinha rather than Richarlison. But, presuming they do come in for him, I think you could probably get more money because obviously without Calvert-Lewin being a starter for England necessarily, it probably devalues him slightly. But I think if you're looking northwards of 65 million for either of them, there's temptation there, isn't there? If you've got the right people in to go and reinvest at least, which hopefully Lampard will
Definitely, yeah. I mean, but in the summer, maybe you think you get that money for Richarlison, but for me, I don't think you could now. I don't think he deserves it. He doesn't warrant it, does he? He's had his injuries this season. He scores a couple of decent goals. The one at Norwich was a cracker, even though it's only a consolation goal. And when he came off the bench at Norwich with that header, it was a great header. But for me, with Richarlison, I don't think he's doing quite enough, and he's not the type of person to down tools. He likes to play for himself. I always think he might not necessarily want to spend his whole career at Everton, but he will always try because he wants to better his career. And I think now if he does want to get a move, he needs to pull his finger out a little bit more. But with Calvert-Lewin, you'd like to think the amount of patience and nurturing has been with him, you would like to think that he'd give Everton a little bit longer, wouldn't you? Before he has to move on. And if he has to move on for the sake of his career, when no one can blame him, but it wasn't all that long ago when Everton fans were saying he'll never make it. Not just Everton fans, fair play to him. He's turned himself around and he's turned himself a top striker.
Yeah. Hopefully the higher pressing game that Lampard's going to bring might favour both of them, because the last 6 months has just been so defensively minded and there's been no creativity in the centre of that park. And obviously they've both been injured intermittently. So hopefully now with a bit more impetus on, getting forward, pressing high up the pitch, winning the ball high, and it might just give them another bit of freedom to go and play their own game and have a good second half to the season.
Yeah, definitely. It's just be interested in midfield now. Are we might fit Van der Beek and Dele Alli. Does he play a sitter like Allen and then play 2 number 8s, or where do you fit Decore into the team then when he's fit? But I mean, those are the headaches you want as a manager, though, aren't they? You never want to turn up and think, right, I've got to play this team. You want those sorts of headaches. Every manager I've dealt with in the past has said, people say, you've got a selection headache. He said, it's not a headache when you've got options. The headache is when you haven't got the options.
Better than trying to slot Mason Holgate into a defensive midfield position, definitely.
Absolutely.
Do you think with the World Cup being in the winter that's maybe a predicament that Everton might have to face? I mean, with the international players, they might want to move away to prove themselves somewhere else to get their places in World Cup squads.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, obviously Ben Godfrey was in and around the England team. Now he's out of it, but it's one of them who's the go-to, who will pay the money for that Everton want for Ben Godfrey. The players that are internationals at the minute who might be going to the World Cup, maybe the only one probably is Richarlison. You think has a little bit of battle on his hands. I mean, when he plays irregularly, obviously he wasn't in the international squad for Brazil this window because he's just come back from the injury. But if his form doesn't turn around, you think there might be a couple of question marks over him. And you've got Jordan Pickford. He'll be in the squad regardless whether there's talk of Aaron Ramsdale going to usurp him, which is absolutely ridiculous for me. Pickford has his best season by far, to be honest with you. Barely hasn't made many of his clangers. He seems over them. Mina, regular for Colombia. Decore maybe hopeful of getting into the France squad if he could hit that form that he had at the start of the season. When Everton were looking positive for 5 games or so, then possibly he might do. But no, I can't really see anyone. Damari Gray, as I say, people talking about maybe him getting into it. Where's he going to go? I think if you got to go off Damari Gray, it makes business sense to sell him regardless. If someone did come in with 20-25 million, what they pay for him. So, no, I think with the squad that Everton got at the minute, I can't see anyone. Maybe, as I say, Decore, maybe perhaps one person, but otherwise, no, I can't see anyone who just want to go to further enhance their international hopes.
I have to say the Jordianers does have the little smirk whenever I hear Jordan Pickford get mentioned, especially with our next Premier League game being yourselves at home and Pickford notoriously not being able to play at St James's. So very much looking forward to it. Well, we'll move on to Liverpool because they've brought in their marquee this signing. We maybe thought they were going to have a really quiet window and maybe not bring anyone in, more have the outgoings. Do you think Luis Diaz was the piece in the puzzle Liverpool maybe needed this season to catch up with City and potentially win the title?
I mean, if Diaz comes in and makes an impact and Liverpool finish a point, 2 points behind Man City, there'll be some fans ruining and thinking, why didn't we go and get in the summer? Because the amount of clamour from supporters for Klopp to go out in the summer and buy an extra attacker to take the burden off Salah, Mane, Jota, Firmino. It didn't happen, and a lot of fans were naturally disappointed because, okay, Diogo Jota, cracking first season, injured, a lot more to come, and lo and behold, it has done. But for the past, 4 seasons, the burden's been on Mane and Salah, and I know they had a full pre-season, full break last summer. It was always going to catch up on them. It always was. Okay, it hasn't with Mo Salah. This has been his best season by far in Liverpool share, but Sadio Mane, he's been up and down. I mean, if you look at his numbers, you wouldn't say he's having a bad season, but he called last season his worst season in Liverpool shirt. And has he been much better? He's been stuttering at times. He's been superb at other times. He's been poor, and I think that might come from fatigue. And now, obviously, he's playing a big role for Senegal, the African Cup of Nations. You wonder what sort of shape he's going to come back in. Luis Diaz, of course, there's the option to rotate that, and he could make a real impact. That's a real marquee sign, real statement sign from Liverpool to go out and get a player of his ilk who's obviously coveted by Tottenham. You think if he's left it till the summer, those have been other potential suitor circle, and that's why Dave alluded to it earlier. That's why Liverpool moved for Diaz so early. But yeah, if Liverpool miss out on the title by 1-2 points, claw it back, you're just going to look at it and think, if we went out and spent that money in the summer, could we have beaten City to the title? Or if they can't find a way, say, past Champions League, quarterfinals, semi-final, well, they've got Diaz in now, but no, that's, ignore me on that one. But the Premier League, they're talking nonsense. Premier League, I mean, go back to, you think of the games like Brentford, where they're throwing points away. Chelsea, when they couldn't break 10 men down for the majority of the game. You look back on those games, don't you? You think, we just need that extra spark, and a player of as quality is required in those sorts of games. And yeah, Liverpool didn't have it in those, and you do look back at those and regret sometimes.
Do you think Diaz could be the final piece in the puzzle for Liverpool's next generation of that front three? Obviously, there's Harvey Elliott already there, Diogo Jota's already there. Do you think Diaz would make that final front three to eventually replace Salah, Firmino and Mane?
Yeah, it's a funny one with Harvey Elliott because start of the season before he's got his injury, he was playing in a midfield three. So it depends how he develops, really. In terms of Mane, Firmino, Salah, a lot's been made obviously about the contracts, and they're all roughly the same age, 29, 30, and it's impossible for all of them to stay at Liverpool until the same time, because we see aging squads like happened to Real Madrid a couple of years ago, even Man United before their downfall, they had an aging squad, and it lasts you and you have success, but you've got to plan for the future and you've got to have evolution. You look at Luis Diaz, 25, 5-year deal, he's probably 3-4 years off his peak. Players can play a bit longer now if they look after themselves, but so you're looking at, you wonder how long Salah can last for. So perhaps it might be Salah, Diaz, Jota, and then you maybe look at getting Salah. Well, naturally, will want to move on, or you'll have to let him go eventually if there's no room for sentiment in football, depending on how long he can stay at the top level. And then you're looking at Jota then, and he's 24, 25, but then do you look at getting a proper number 9 in rather than Jota, who you wouldn't say he's a natural striker, but he could play in any of the front three roles, really. And so then you do look at getting a proper number 9 in down the line. But it's interesting, and nothing's set in stone with Liverpool, and I think we've seen that now. And I think that I think Liverpool fans are ultimately happy that Liverpool have gone out and shown that they want to still recruit these sorts of players. A lot of them was made, obviously, in some about not replacing Gini Wijnaldum as well. So it shows that there's been a few knockers from FSG. They're not investing the money, but when push comes to shove and the deal's right and it makes business sense, because ultimately they are businessmen, then they will go out and do it and sanction these deals.
Does that surprise you then that we haven't seen Minamino or Origi leave this window?
Yes and no. Jurgen Klopp's always said about Origi, he's so unlucky not to play, and if he was at any other top side, he would play a lot more. Scored some very important goals, cult hero at Liverpool, and as an option off the bench, you can't ask for anything better. Let's not forget he's coming back from injury as well. Okay, he's nearing full fitness, so that obviously has an impact. And Minamino, Klopp always says he can play in so many roles. He can play centre midfield, play out wide, he can play as a false 9. So to have those options off the bench, and you're still fighting 4 fronts, got a cup final to come, FA Cup. You'd like, a lot of fans would like Liverpool to have a go at that. Champions League, last 16, and the Premier League. Obviously, they're still going for that, and you factor in COVID cases and things like that. All right, I know they're on a decline now. There's not as many cases going around, but things can happen. Injuries can take its toll, and fans have craved this sort of depth that Liverpool have the front end of the pitch. Beg your pardon. So, look, I don't think anyone will be complaining that Liverpool aren't selling players unless they really have to balance the books. Then let's not moan about players not leaving the club. Let's be happy that there's plenty in behind and can change games.
Yeah, there has been one player leave. I feel that Phillips going to Bournemouth. Do you think we've now seen him, the last of him, in a red shirt? Well, the red of Liverpool. Yeah,
you'd possibly think so. You possibly look at that. Liverpool, from a business sense, it makes sense to sell Nat Phillips potentially in the summer. You know, they obviously wanted 15 million for him this window, and no one came up with the money. He's obviously went out on loan to Bournemouth. I think that's probably come down to Jurgen Klopp saying, I can't leave this lad fester on the sidelines, on the fringes for another 6 months or so, because he's been 5th choice centre-back, and Jurgen Klopp really rates Nat Phillips. I think he calls him the second most improved player he's ever worked with behind Robert Lewandowski. So that shows just how highly he rates Nat Phillips as a centre-back. And I think from a personal relationship and feeling, you know, he's a human being at the end of the day. He wants to do his job and play football, and he hasn't had that at Liverpool. And Klopp probably knows he's too good to sit on the bench, so he's let him go out. They've got Reece Williams back now. Touch wood, don't get any injuries. Joe Gomez can't get a look in. Shows Liverpool got real quality in that area of the pitch. Fabinho, if needs be, could fill in there if you really had to. If there was another centre-back crisis, touch wood, that doesn't happen again, because that was killed Liverpool last season, didn't it? But no, they've got plenty of strength and depth there. They've got $1.5 million out of it, which look, they signed Nat Phillips on a free, didn't he? And he was released by Bolton, and he won't be on massive wages. Probably what they've got on loan fees from Bournemouth and potentially from Stuttgart a couple of years ago, that could have paid Nat Phillips' wages since he joined Liverpool. So any money they might sell is pure profit. And look, again, people knock FSG, but the setup, the infrastructure you've got with Michael Edwards and Julian Ward's taking over from him in the summer. It's some real shrewd operators in there. You've got to salute it.
David, you were nodding your head. How would you rate Liverpool's window this month?
I think it gets a 10 just for signing someone. I mean, usually January's quite quiet, isn't it? And we just sit there and just go, well, nothing's happened. So the fact that we've done business and good business and still potentially could have a bit more to do, depending on whether Carvalho gets over the line or not, gets a 10 from me. I see what Will's saying there about a lot of people do knock FSG, but they don't realise that, like, when Liverpool sign a player, yeah, okay, it says we've paid 37.5 million for Luis Diaz. I think the fees rising to 50, Will, or something like that. Am I right in saying?
Yeah.
Liverpool won't see that as 37.5 million. They'll see that as 50 million. Then they'll say, right, he's on however much a month, and that adds up to 15 million over the time of his contract. Liverpool will see that as a £65 million investment. They don't take into account, like, oh yeah, we're only paying 37.5. Everything is planned ahead. They've built the main stand, they're building the Anfield Road, they've completely redeveloped Kirby. The club's never been in a better financial position, and I think at times it's unfair, particularly when you look at some owners across the country. And, you're going to look at Manchester United at the M62, who are just owned by people who don't care about that football club and just want to bleed it for money, whereas Liverpool are owned by people who, okay, you could argue they don't really care about the club, but, no one's going to get a fan in charge with billions and billions of pounds. It's just not going to happen. It's pie in the sky. And I think Liverpool are very well operated and very well run. And as Will said, they've seen that the deal is there. They've known the club wants this Diaz, and Tottenham have gone in. They've gone, nope, we're having him. Thanks, lads. And it's odd because a few years ago it would have been the other way around. Tottenham would have poached them. So it says a lot. One thing I did want to ask you, Will, and Dom probably won't be impressed with me asking this because the Villa loving with Coutinho is very, very high at the moment. But do you reckon there was any interest in Liverpool bringing Felipe Coutinho back? As you say, I know he wasn't really a midfielder as such, but he could play in centre mid now and again and give you an option in the front three. Do you think there was ever like a thought that crossed Klopp or Edwards' mind that, okay, we can get him back on loan?
I mean, I'm sure once they heard, you probably thought, you'd let your eyes light up and then you think, well, where does he fit in? Liverpool's midfield's changed now, hasn't it? The three midfielders aren't there to score goals. They're there to win the ball back, spread the ball play. Even the full-backs have changed a lot now. Robertson's first year didn't play a lot, and then he started getting into it, didn't he? With just as Coutinho was that 2017-18 season, Alexander-Arnold's come on. Now he's taking up more central roles, isn't he? And you see Henderson drifting out to that right flank a lot more now, sort of linking up. So he probably looked at it and thought, A, wages, is it worth it? B, is he the same player? Can we get him back? And then C, where would he fit in now? Where would he fit in that midfield? All right, you had arguably Harvey Elliott played that role at the start of the season, but there's always a doubt, isn't it, going back? And I watched Coutinho against Everton a couple of weeks ago. I didn't think he did a lot of it, really, to be honest with you.
To be honest, Will, that was Coutinho for me. It was like one good game, 5 really bang average games. Sorry, Dom, that I'm just completely ruining Felipe Coutinho for you. But that was my opinion of him. Is like he play well one game, you go, this guy's a magician, he's fantastic, and then you play 5 games and just think there's one of them where you watch the game, you're an hour in, you go, oh, is he playing? I didn't realise he was on the pitch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
That was it for me, like.
Yeah, and you need that now, and you've got Harvey Elliott, who's probably the most attacking, along with Curtis Jones as well. You've got 2 attacking, and you don't want to stop these pathways, with younger lads coming through. You don't want to stop that and bring Coutinho in for 6 months, and you think, well, someone like Curtis Jones might think, right, I was all right on the fringes, and now because I've had a chance. And when he has had a chance, he's really taken it. He's obviously listened to what Klopp wants them to do, push them a bit more, worked a bit harder, and that would have stunted his development. So now, probably the right decision, I think so.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Dom, we'll come to you then. Coutinho, I asked again. You were surprised with Digne. Were you surprised with Coutinho when he came in?
In a way, no, because I'd heard that we were in for him in the summer, but that he didn't want to join, and that doesn't really surprise me. So I knew that he was a player that was on our radar, but I was definitely surprised it happened because obviously, like, it's Philippe Coutinho, isn't it? It's someone of that profile. You know, we've never made a signing on that scale in the club's history before. It marked a complete shift in transfer policy from the Moneyball style stuff that we've been doing straight to just big names, big players that we've been doing under Gerrard. And I definitely agree with a lot of what Will was saying in terms of I don't think he'd have fit it in at Liverpool. I don't think position. I think he's a number 10. I don't think Liverpool play a number 10. That's not my interpretation of how I watch Liverpool play. And ultimately, I think if Liverpool had gone in for him, he would have gone there instead. That's the ultimate thing. If Liverpool had gone for him, if Liverpool were interested, he'd be playing for Liverpool at the moment.
He's not good enough for us, Tom.
I'm not saying he is. I don't think
no,
he is.
I'm telling you, it is.
Especially with Luis Diaz coming in as well. Thing is with Coutinho now as well. You talked about his inconsistency as well. You talked about you mentioned you weren't that enamoured with how he played against Everton, and I would agree. It was a very scrappy sort of game. That game, it was a game where it had to be proper physical, get stuck in, and I don't think that's his kind of game at all. He didn't have the time or space on the ball, and I don't think Villa ever really had a spell where they dominated possession and stuff. What I do think, however, is the only thing that's going to improve is his confidence, which you'll all know how important his confidence is to a player like Coutinho, and his fitness, which I mentioned earlier is in a really poor state. But he's only going to improve, and he's still only 29. So I still think, hopefully he'll get to a more consistent level. But I think he's got such quality, and he's just gonna. And the thing is with him as well is that he's lifted players around him. Emi Buendia is the best example of that. Since we signed Coutinho, he's been our best player in every single game by a comfortable margin, justifying that big fee every single time he plays. So I think Coutinho is a massive lift for him. He took a pay cut to join Villa as well, which I think is admirable of him. I think he's only going to get better for us, and if we trigger that 33 million buy option, then so be it. But if we don't, then I think it'll be something that lifts the club and tells other clubs that we're looking for big players.
Yeah, I think the only reason I would have liked to have seen Coutinho go back to Liverpool is just the pure fact of the scam they'll have pulled on Barcelona. What was it, David? Was it 170 million? Something around that figure when he sold them.
Euros, yeah, it was like 140 odd quid, $1 million, which was just... I mean, they went for the complete wrong player. At the time, personally, I thought they should have gone for Mane, because Mane, at that time, I thought was our best player. Arguably Salah as well. But, I mean, to go for Coutinho, we were just rubbing our hands together. I mean, without that move, none of this ever happens. Like, you don't sign Alisson, you don't sign Van Dijk, you don't win the league, you don't win the Champions League. So, I mean, that was probably the greatest deal in the history of football for me.
Yeah, it's amazing that he went to Barcelona for all that money, and then his best, like the best time he's played while he's been there has been at Bayern Munich. We'll come back to Everton. Do you think
we have to?
Unfortunately,
sorry, Mike.
To be honest, I just quite find it quite funny. We've got the common relegation battle going on. But, do you think that Dele Alli and I've pulled a blank. do you think that the signings you have made today and Lampard, do you think that's enough to keep Everton up this season?
You'd like to think so. I don't think that we're necessarily a relegation side, are we? Will I think we're probably mid-table-ish, lower mid-table.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I was looking at the start or after the Aston Villa game, I was thinking they need some experience in here though now. And I think if Benitez has brought these players in, you'd wonder, are these going to be up for the battle? But I think with Lampard, fresh impetus coming in, and new coaches, proper coaches, really well-respected coaches like Paul Clement coming in, I think they might get a tune out of them and the other players that are there. And then you got the likes of Nathan Patterson and Mikalenko who've signed. It'd be interesting how they come along under Lampard. And then even players like, can he revive Michael Keane, who's has a dreadful season? Can he? I dare say it. Can he turn Alex Iwobi into a £35 player?
I would personally say Alex Iwobi is the biggest daylight robbery in the history of football. By the way, like pounds for appearance, I would say he's far worse than Philippe Coutinho.
I wouldn't argue there.
It's sad when that's the point of comparison for Coutinho
Yeah.
and Alex Iwobi, to be honest.
Yeah, that's slightly unfair. Like,
But you know, at the end of the day, like at the start of the window, Everton fans were looking at someone like, and this no offense, Newcastle fans, Sean Longstaff coming in, and now you've got Dele Alli and Donny van der Beek coming in to start contrast, isn't it? A little bit of, if you unlock them, a little bit of stardust rather than an industrial midfielder who would have played to Rafa Benitez's robust, pragmatic system. Now you've got players who might have that little bit of freedom, you're going to play on the front foot. And look, if Everton stay up and there's a bit of entertainment, I think Everton fans would take that in a heartbeat to the rest of the season. They've had to endure some tough times. I've had to endure some tough times watching them this season. So, you know, if you take 15th, 16th and you're actually entertained, you know, you're getting that excitement on a match day. I don't know what you're like, Mike. Everyone I speak to, it's been a chore going to the match this season.
I'd be tempted to streak if we played a forward pass, to be honest. It's been pretty
Sit worth the ban.
On the pitch for a shot on target, lads.
Yeah.
I was tempted to take the ban during the Villa game, to be honest.
So, I was going to say, yeah, to win. You weren't the fella who threw the bottle, were you?
No, they said at half time, if you throw any bottles on the pitch, you get a lifetime ban. So I went down and bought one.
Everyone threw a bottle, yeah.
Yeah.
Lucozade everywhere. Drinks aren't available.
I mean, I think it's more of the change of system which might work for us, because I think the 4-4-2 really stifled us and just exposed that midfield, that centre of midfield. So I think extra bodies in that midfield, and you know, obviously a three-pronged attack of Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, and Gray or Gordon, you'd probably go with off the bat. I think that suits the team a lot more. None of them midfielders are quick enough, mobile enough, or you know, good enough in the tackle to play in a two. So I think the change of system will benefit us, and obviously integrating one of those two or the two new signings can only give us a little bit more creativity and ball retention, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll come quickly back to you, Dom, mate. Signing of Callum Chambers on a free, was he someone you were happy to see come in, and then were you maybe disappointed that you just didn't get Joe Gomez? I know you were linked with him earlier on in the window. How happy have you been with Villa's window?
I think the Villa's window has been really underrated. We've got in Robin Olsen as well, a cover goalkeeper, which was needed. We need a defensive cover. We've checked that box. We've got in Coutinho, which is a bonus, Dini, which is a bonus. I would have liked to see a defensive midfielder, but I'd rather we waited to the summer to get a proper target. As for Callum Chambers, you know, he's not a glamorous player, but he's shown at Fulham and at Arsenal at times he's got quality. Keep him fit. That'll keep him good. He's only just turned 27, I think, so he's still quite young. He can cover across the back four and in defensive midfield. He comes, you know, from a top club. You know, he's got that big club mentality. So he's not going to get loads of games, but I don't think Joe Gomez was ever going to happen because he wasn't going to come to sit on the bench, and I don't know which one out of Konsa and Mings he would have actually been able to displace. So yeah, I'm happy with Callum Chambers. It's on a free. So it's not a huge financial outlay. It just adds a bit of squad depth, and he can cover a few positions. He's a decent, solid Premier League pro, and I'm happy with it. The window as a whole, brilliant. In the summer, we're looking at defensive midfield as our main priority. Maybe another right back, a couple more goals in the side, and maybe another midfielder. And I think we're looking for a real European push next season. So I'm very happy with the foundations we put in place in January. Absolutely.
Well, that's us for that hour. Thanks, Will, for all your time. All eyes on the Liverpool and Carvalho now. Mike, Dom, thanks for jumping on. David, thanks for coming back a bit early. So you've just mentioned Callum Chambers there, and then the interest in Joe Gomez. The Box spoke about it earlier on in the week, so we'll jump to that now.
Joe Gomez has been linked to Villa. Have you heard anything about that?
Just paper talk and speculation, really. It kind of does fit the bill that Villa fans are saying we still need another centre-half. We probably need a defensive midfielder as well, with Marvelous Nakamba sort of out long-term injured. And obviously Joe Gomez does fit the bill. I was reading today that the interest from Liverpool's end seems to have cooled as far as that's concerned. And I can kind of see where they're coming from. regarding that. I mean, Liverpool are one bad injury to Virgil van Dijk away from having a horrific season.
We came into the week yesterday, we were looking good, looked like we were at least going to bring 4 in this week by the sounds of it, and then Diego Carlos has apparently broke down Sevilla, apparently I think they just keep upping the fee every time we put a bid in. They're saying it's enough and then turn around and going, actually we want 5 million more. So I think our owners are at the end of the stick and trying to give up on that one now.
Arsenal have not really done any business in terms of bringing in players at the moment. We've let some people go. Like today, we had announced Tyrese John-Jules. He's one of our young starlets, but he's not really had much luck out on loan. So he's gone out again today. And last week we had, towards the end of last week, we had Pablo Mari, an experienced centre-back. He's gone out to Udinese on loan for the rest of the season. So, yeah, it's just a waiting game at the moment. We sort of tend to do our big money signings towards the end. But my fear is that it's going to be with added tax because we're panic buying.
But I have to say for City, I think we were really expecting City to have a quiet month this month, and I've seen links with Julian Alvarez, one the kid from River Plate, who's a fantastic talent. He's one for, if you play career mode on FIFA, you know all about him. He's fantastic.
No, I don't. So, yeah, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I would love to see someone like him come across to the Prem.
Welcome back to the final hour of the deadline, of the transfer deadline day. It's flew over already. There was a clip from the Box to Box podcast there from Andy and Co. And if you haven't already checked it out, please do. Every Tuesday at 8 o'clock on Facebook. Always some brilliant people. One of which who's a very much a regular is with us tonight. We'll come to him very shortly. Joining me now, Liam Brusby from the Behind the Leazes podcast. Good evening, Liam.
Hey David, you all right? How you doing?
All right, mate. I'm good. Thank you very much. We've also got, he's the regular on the Box to Box podcast, West Brom fan Jonathan Wimbush. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Been watching it all night, doing a good job so far.
Seen your comments. Thank you. Thank you. It was a shame that Paul's headphones didn't work properly.
Yeah, I know, man. I know.
There you go. We've all been there. And Middlesbrough supporter Charlie Hopper. Charlie, hello.
Hi there, mate. You all right?
I'm good, mate. Thank you very much. And we're also delighted to have Jason Jones from National World joining us. Good evening, Jason. Nice to have you with us.
Yeah, evening, gents. Nice to be here.
Great to have you. So let's quickly go through some of the bigger deals that have happened, and we'll gloss over them again, because we've had some really, really left field ones and some really just crazy ones. But before we do, we are waiting to see if Liverpool can complete a deal for Fabio Carvalho from Fulham. We believe an agreement has been reached on the fee. We're waiting to see what that fee might be. We initially heard it was about 5 million earlier today. It might be slightly more considering Fulham knocked that back. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on, depending on if it goes through. I think we've got until 1 o'clock for any deals that sort of in the pipeline, and transfer paperwork gets submitted before 11. You can go through till 1. There's a bit of a rush on for the medical and stuff. Let's start again with Christian Eriksen, because it's a really nice story. Jason, I'll come to you first with this one, because obviously we all seen the really horrible scenes of what happened to him at the Euros over the summer. And then he obviously gets his contract terminated by Inter Milan, and we all kind of assumed, didn't we, that was his career done. He was probably over and done with him. He's back with Brentford now on a 6-month deal. How do you feel about him being back in the Premier League?
I mean, first and foremost, you're absolutely right. It's a lovely story, isn't it? Anyone who obviously witnessed what happened over the summer, it was pretty harrowing. And I think we all sort of had the fear that was probably Eriksen's career done, essentially. So for him to be back in any capacity is a wonderful thing. For him to be back playing for Brentford, I think it's a massive coup for Brentford, to be honest with you. We all know what Eriksen has to offer. The fact that he's playing for a team like Inter Milan as recently as last season is a huge indication of what he's capable of. And for Thomas Frank and his men to be able to bring in a player of that sort of quality, obviously we know it's an initial short-term deal, sort of see how things work out from there. But you would imagine that if Eriksen can bring even a smidge of the quality that he showed for Tottenham, then Brentford would probably be keen to extend that. And I think that if they can get him playing to any sort of level, then he's going to be a fantastic addition to that side.
Absolutely, and certainly someone that they need to just steer away from that relegation zone if he can be at his best. And Liam, you're a Newcastle fan. You're down in the danger zone. Are you a bit disappointed that one of the teams they're not really right next to you, but they're with a shout of going down? Are you disappointed that they've strengthened so well there with that signing?
Yeah, he's a player with a lot of strength. I know he's been training with Ajax throughout this past month. It's always been a deal that I think is been just about to happen, but I didn't actually think it was going to get over the line before the end of the deadline. It just seemed like they were just about to get it done. But yeah, like you said, a team that's sort of around that relegation zone, not really in it yet, but still a rival, still a lot of strength in that squad Brentford have. I know Ivan Toney might not be getting as much game time because of other reasons outside of football. But yeah, definitely still a fantastic signing for Brentford.
Yeah, that was a really strange video in the week from Ivan Toney. If you haven't seen it, you probably don't want to be fair, but it was really odd. So that's something that's to certainly watch out for. Jonathan, for you, are you going to be at all worried when he comes onto the pitch? You know, obviously what we've seen in the past, and there's been a lot of medical emergencies at football grounds this season as well. Are you going to be at all worried about watching him play?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, we all seen what happened at Euro 2020. The terrible scenes there. Of course, you know, with the laws in Italy about like not being able to play with pacemakers essentially fitted. Of course, Inter Milan terminated the contract, as you said. But I think it's a really good signing for Brentford. I echo, I think it was Bernard earlier who said he would be concerned about him playing, like a bit worried for the first few games. But yeah, he's been training with Ajax, and you know it's been really promising. And obviously, the doctors wouldn't let him play if they were concerned about any complications. So yeah, I think it's a really good signing for Brentford. And yeah, good luck to Ericsson.
Absolutely. Charlie, for yourself, are you pleased to see him back, or are you worried he's going to play football again? Where do you sit on this one?
No, I think they'll have done extensive medical checks, won't they, to make sure that he's fine to play. So I think in that respect, the experts have cleared him to play because he wouldn't have been able to, especially with the past that he's had. It's great to see him back, especially in the Premier League, and you know you expect him to get a really good reception wherever he goes. And it's a real feel-good story, isn't it? As you mentioned, it's nice to see him back, especially after the last couple of months he's had, and you know, fingers crossed he can get back to the form that you know we've seen him produce in the past.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Jason, for you, I mean, we've mentioned there about like obviously Inter Milan have been sort of forced to terminate his contract because of the rules over there, and they're a lot more stricter when it comes to anything to do with the heart and stuff like that. Do you think it's fair that Inter Milan have had to, as I say, let him go, and he's now free to join Brentford for free? Should he be allowed to do that? And you know, in terms of his own safety, of his health, and in terms obviously as a business of football, and you know, Inter Milan have lost that player.
Yeah, it's certainly a blow, isn't it? You know, and it's one that I'm sure Inter Milan won't be particularly pleased about. It does feel a little bit weird that we have these sort of differences in rules across, you know, various football associations and stuff like that. But I think ultimately, when it comes down to it, you know, the rules are the rules, and if there's a way that Ericsson can continue his career, you know, as the lads have already said, in a way that is sort of safe and with the sort of the relevant medical checks, and I'm sure they are like extensive to the nth degree, you know, but if there's a way that he can continue his playing career, I think ultimately most football and fans, whether they're Inter Milan fans or, you know, just neutrals, for him to be able to get back to doing what he loves and what he does so well, I'm sure that, you know, it's tempered by a certain amount of relief and, you know, like people will just be pleased to see him playing football again. Obviously, you're saying from a business point of view, it's not ideal for Inter, and you know, I'm sure there'll have been discussions behind the scenes about, you know, in terms of how these things can be amended going forward. But certainly from a purely footballing point of view, you know, I think it's hard to argue that it's anything other than a brilliant thing, you know.
Yeah, it is. It's great to see him back playing football again. It really is, after what we've seen over the summer. You know, such sad scenes, to now have a nice sort of ending to the story and see him back in football is fantastic. I want to take a little look into the EFL, chaps, if that's okay, because one of the bigger moves that I've seen sort of going ahead is Kiefer Moore leaving Cardiff. Jonathan, I don't know whether you've seen this. What do you make of him moving on?
Well, Bournemouth have been really busy. It's not just Kiefer Moore. They've signed Sakiri Dembele from Peterborough. And they've got Nat Phillips from your own Liverpool, and also Freddie Woodman from Newcastle. So I'm sure Andy's happy about that. But yeah, Kiefer Moore, what a signing that is for Bournemouth. I mean, it's showing their intent, just those 4 signings alone. It's showing Bournemouth's intent to get promoted. I mean, I'm speaking as a promotion rival to Bournemouth. And yeah, I'm looking over to them and I'm like, well, why aren't we doing that? So yeah, it's definitely showing intent. And Kiefer Moore from Cardiff, that looks to be a really good signing for them.
It definitely does indeed. He's a top player. And Charlie, for you, are you at all concerned about that move?
No, look, I think at Middlesbrough we needed that move to go through because Chris Wilder's already said that he wanted to balance the books a little bit more on Teesside. So he's got rid of Uche Piezu, which has just been announced. He's gone on loan now to Cardiff. So that's kind of paved the way for him to go. But, look, Bournemouth are going to, if they've got the money to spend, they may as well spend it in the backing Scott Parker. So, I expect them to now go on a really good run as soon as the window ends. And, I expect them to be there and thereabouts come the end because they've signed some real quality in this window.
Yeah, certainly a lot going on there with him moving and obviously Charlie, you'll be hoping to get promoted and take on Newcastle next season, whether it be in the Championship or in the Premier League. Sorry, Liam. But Liam, obviously, we're going to come to Newcastle in a lot more depth very shortly. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on the business so far, sort of in general, before we go back to the EFL.
Well, it's been a very different transfer window, hasn't it, for Newcastle United?
Just
the
a little
transfer
bit.
window, yeah, it's really, really weird because we've had money for a long time, but our owners just haven't wanted to spend it in the last ownership. But now, I think with Dan Burn coming in, we are approaching £100 million spent in this transfer window. Correct us if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the most out of any club in the top 5 leagues. I know Juventus have spent a fair bit of money, but I think we've spent the most money out of a lot of them. I wouldn't have anticipated this if you asked us this, 4 or 5 months ago? Not a chance. It's crazy. It really, really is crazy. Top class players as well. You look at Kieran Trippier, a player who has just won the La Liga last season. Bruno Guimaraes is a solid midfielder, great passer of the ball, really good at interceptions. Look at Dan Burn as well. His stats compared to other Newcastle players. Even Matt Targett as well, a player who I've not seen a lot of, but part of a solid Aston Villa side. It is really looking up. Of course, there's been a lot of players who've been linked within this transfer window. Like I said in the previous ownership, would have been linked with a lot of these players, but never sort of going in for these players. Think of the likes of Diego Carlos, really good, solid centre backs as well in the French league and the Liga. Obviously, it's not happened, but the fact that we've still been able to put these bids in and be confident with it, have these players actually want to move to a side who are in the relegation zone, it shows a lot of ambition, and it's ambition that we didn't really have in the past ownership.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It's. I know from watching you on the podcast, on the Behind the Leaders podcast, and seeing how much it's changed from a year ago to now. It was doom and gloom every week. It was, even when you won, it was just, you didn't want to know. It was just,
yeah.
And then without winning a game in the first 4 or whatever it was still so happy and joyful. So
yeah,
that's been nice personally for me to see. Jason, it's been quite a busy January transfer window, quite exciting. Usually we get the whole spiel from Sky and all that of stay tuned, there's loads coming. But this year there actually really has been a lot going on. So for you, is there any deals that you want to highlight that you've quite enjoyed covering or something that you've enjoyed watching along with?
I think the one that sort of jumped out at me, and it's literally gone through in the past hour, is Aaron Ramsey to Rangers. And it's not necessarily one that we've been able to follow along with because it's happened so quickly. It's come out of left field. But I mean, that is a huge, huge statement of intent from Rangers. Now, obviously, he's only there on loan, and there are going to be question marks about the finances behind it. Obviously, you would imagine that Juventus are going to have to be subsidising his wages to a large extent, just purely because of the wages that we know he's on over in Italy and the sort of wage structure that Rangers have at Ibrox. But in terms of them going out and bringing in a quality player who can really help them to kick on, I mean, we know how tight the title race is up in Scotland, rather. This season, there's 2 points between them and Celtic at the moment. For them to sort of go and bring in a player who can really elevate them I don't think they could have asked for a better player than Ramsey. Like, I genuinely think, in terms of Rangers making signings, this could be the biggest statement that they've made since we saw the likes of Gaza going up there. You know, like, I'm not saying that Ramsey's on that level in terms of his quality, but certainly in terms of them pulling off a coup like this. If you look at the, you know, the sort of quality of clubs who were being linked with him, the likes of Newcastle, you know, Leeds were mentioned at one point, Burnley, Crystal Palace looked as if they had him at one stage as well. For Rangers to go and beat all of those clubs to secure his services, I mean, it's a huge deal for them. And, you know, I was watching Sky Sports before I hopped on here, and Chris Boyd, you know, he was grinning like a madman. I think a lot of Rangers fans are going to be feeling exactly the same, because it's a huge signing for Rangers.
It's absolutely massive, to be fair, for Rangers. That is a huge deal. Because he's not, I mean, we were saying a little bit earlier on, he's not like, he could probably get in a Premier League team, maybe a Championship team, high end. And that's no disrespect to Rangers that he's gone there, but it's a really big signing for them. So, I mean, fair play to them. They've done really well. The other one that's got a quite nice story behind it, I'll stay with you on this one, Jason, is Jermaine Defoe potentially going back to Sunderland. He's going the opposite direction to Ramsey, in a sense. Well, not quite going to Turin, like, but, you know, that's got a nice story behind it as well, hasn't it? And I think that's nearly done. What are your thoughts on Defoe going back up there?
Well, I mean, I have a bit of a vested interest here. I am a Sunderland fan, and I can...
Perfect man to ask.
Perfect man to ask. I can barely keep the grin off my face, to be fair. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of sentimentality attached to this deal. Jermaine Defoe and what he brought to the club, not just in terms of his performances on the pitch, but obviously we know the relationship he had with young Bradley Lowry and the wonderful work he did with him. And he was genuinely adored during his time at the club, and he's still adored by the fan base. And there's a reason for that, you know what I mean? And when it became apparent that he was leaving Rangers, we all sort of thought, well, you know, could it happen? Will it happen? And then as the months sort of wore on, it's become more and more apparent that it is edging closer and closer. Now, obviously, I don't want to dare to dream, and I don't think I'll see it. I don't think I'll believe it until I see him holding the scarf aloft, you know, and it's sort of all confirmed and tied up. But certainly in terms of what he can bring, in terms of the sort of quality and the experience and the level-headedness that he could add to the dressing room, because as you know, Saturday's 6-0 defeat against Bolton showed, we certainly need a large helping of that in this squad. I think it would be a huge addition, but I also think he's got a lot to offer on the pitch as well. You know, he might be 39, he might be approaching the end of his career, but in terms of a quality finisher in and around the box who can, you know, just see chances that other players don't and finish chances that other players certainly can't, I don't think you could ask for a better player than Jermaine Defoe, especially in League One. And, you know, if and when this deal is completed, then it's going to be a cause for huge celebration on Weir's side, and I think justifiably so as well. Yeah,
definitely, and a bit strange in terms of timing with Lee Johnson getting sacked at the weekend after, as you say, heavy 6-0 defeat. Very disappointing. But for you, would Jermaine Defoe coming in and keeping Lee Johnson have worked, or, you know, what's the situation there? Would that have helped Lee Johnson if he'd come in slightly earlier?
I mean, it's a bit of a complicated situation. I think the thing is with Lee Johnson going, it's divided the fan base, and I completely understand why it has, because on the one hand, you know, there's probably a strong argument to be made for a 6-0 defeat to a team who were 14th in League One being probably one of our worst in history, truth be told. And it's kind of, it made his position untenable. But if you look at the bigger picture beyond that, you know, we've won something like 7 in 22 and won in our last 5. And if we're a team who should be pushing for promotion from League One, you know, it's kind of a little bit of a travesty that we've been down there for as long as we have, when you think about the level of backing the previous managers have had. You know, it's just not good enough. And so I can certainly understand the argument behind people saying give it a bit more time, especially because, like you said, the timing of it is so bizarre. You know, he's been given a whole month to bring in his own players. We've made some good signings this month as well. It's been a positive window at the Stadium of Light. To then go and oust him day before deadline day, it just doesn't quite sit quite right with that, rather. But at the same time, I think it had gotten to a point where Johnson can't have too many qualms about it. You know what I mean? It got to a point where his position was becoming increasingly untenable. And even with the signing of Jermaine Defoe, I think there just wasn't enough consistency in Lee Johnson's tenure to justify him keeping his job for too much longer.
Yeah, that's very fair, to be fair. If you lost that many games, you're underperforming that much, you probably do deserve to lose your job, potentially. Mr. Wimbush, you've been our EFL correspondent on the Box to Box podcast throughout this week. Before we dive a little bit further into what's happening and some of the deals you might have seen, talk to me about West Brom and the transfer window that you've had, because there's a big centre forward who used to play for my football club who's joined your team.
Yeah, little known player named Andy Carroll. He's out on contracts with Reading, so we've now signed him, as well as Daryl DK from Orlando. Jordan Hugo has ended his loan spell with us, went back to Norwich. He's now on loan to Cardiff and promptly scored at the weekend, which is typical Albion luck at the moment. But yeah, Andy Carroll, I mean, is he the guy that's going to help us with our goal scoring problems at the moment? Possibly. We cross the ball a lot, and from what I've seen at the Hawthorns this season so far, is we're great at crossing, but as for getting people in the box to receive those crosses, not so good. So yeah, big centre forward like Andy Carroll and the reputation that he's got, obviously both at Liverpool and Newcastle, and also at Reading as well. Yeah, I think he is going to get a few goals, but that's not going to be the sole solution to our problems at the moment. I'm sure you heard at the weekend what certain West Bromwich Albion fans did at Millwall. Won't go into that right now, but yeah, don't agree with what happened. But yeah, also we've had a loan out, young player, Jamie Soule. He's gone out from the Hawthorns to Cheltenham on loan. And I just want to touch on this. A former academy player of ours, Raheem Harper, currently at Ipswich, he's now gone on loan to Crewe Alexandra today. So, yeah, bit of business concerning Albion players and former Albion players.
Lovely jubbly. Charlie, for you, what's been going on in your neck of the woods, mate?
It seemed like we'd done all our business, David, quite early on in the window. I think all our incomings had nearly been done by the 14th of January. So Chris Wilder and the new head of recruitment, Kieran Scott, had not messed around at all, bringing in Aaron Connolly from Brighton on loan and following Balogun from Arsenal on loan. The two players that we've brought in on permanent, Caelan Boyd-Munsey from Birmingham City, a name that I think we should keep an eye on because he could be a real gem for Middlesbrough, as well as Riley McGree, who signed for 3.3 million after we fought off Celtic to get his signature. And then obviously we are in the midst of a battle, with a legal battle at the moment with Derby. So of course we have to balance our own books as well. So Dejan Stojanovic has gone out on loan. Williams Kokolo has gone out. Isaac Fletcher's gone out on loan. And today Marcus Brown has gone out. And as I said a little bit earlier on, Uche Piezu as well. He's left the club on a loan deal. And there's just one that Chris Wilder wanted rid of, and that was James Leah-Saliki. But it sounds like the player and his club that he was at don't want him to. They don't want him at Middlesbrough. They don't want him at his parent club. So the player's in limbo at the moment. Really, he's not going to play for Middlesbrough. So it feels bad for him. But as the window ticks on now, I'd have loved to have seen Kieran Clark come in from Newcastle. He was someone that we were trying to get hold of, and potentially Jeff Hendrick, but both of them just haven't materialised. But we've done the business that we needed to do. The squad's still pretty short, but I trust what Chris Wilder's trying to do on Teesside.
Definitely. And in terms of your promotion push, do you feel like at the end of this window, are you stronger or in a worse position than you were before it?
Oh no, we're in a much better position than what we were. The run we've put together at the moment is really promising. If we didn't get promoted this year, I wouldn't be too bothered. I think we're building a nice project under Chris Wilder, and his identity is coming across really nicely. The signings that he's brought in as well, really happy with them. The two loan deals, especially Balogun from Arsenal, he looks a real talent. So we're competing with some big teams up there that are spending a lot of money. But Chris Wilder's used to working on a cheap squad that potentially isn't competing with the others. So you never know. But I think there's a bigger picture in here, and especially with the new recruitment structure we've got going on at Teesside, the next couple of years are pretty promising.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing you back in the Premier League, to be honest, just in terms of a ground. It's a decent ground to get a good allocation. I wouldn't mind that. Jonathan, I'll ask you the same question, really, at the end of this window. Do you feel like the Baggies are in a better position to get back to the Premier League for like the 10 millionth time this century?
Well, we are
ultimate yo-yo club.
Well, yeah. I don't think we're going to be in a better position, but surely it can't get much worse than losing 2-0 to Preston, then losing 2-0 to Millwall. This has been the end of a really bad week for the Albion. We are slowly losing ground on the top four. Obviously, we've got the likes of Middlesbrough. We're looking over our shoulders at Middlesbrough and seeing what they're doing. And, they could sneak in as well as Huddersfield. It's a difficult situation at the Hawthorns at the moment. The fans are not happy with the tactics from the manager. We've had loads of, get the manager out, get the board out. There are a few problems at the Hawthorns. We might just scrape into the playoffs at this rate, but with the likes of Middlesbrough, I'm really worried for the Albion at the moment.
Liam, I'm going to come to you in the next sort of 5 or 10 minutes or so when we'll be joined by Newcastle World. So we will get to Newcastle United. I can see that you're itching. Charlie and Jason probably not so much. I'm surprised we haven't incited the riot, actually, that we've got a Newcastle fan, a Sunderland fan and a Borough fan all together. That was not planned out beforehand. Me and Jonathan are splitting.
Yes, it was, David. Go on.
It wasn't. No, honest, it wasn't. I swear. Too much thinking to go into all that. But we'll just come back, Liam, to one of the stranger deals that's happened in this window before we move on. And obviously, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang ended up in Barcelona on holiday, allegedly, when it said the deal was falling apart, and now he's agreed the deal and he's apparently going to Barcelona. What have you made of that deal tonight, and do you think Barcelona have got a good player on the hands?
I'm not really sure, David. It feels a bit Peter Odemwingie. Like
very much so.
When he did he go to Old Trafford or something? And
QPR.
It was QPR from us.
Oh my word!
Yeah.
I mean, you could clearly tell that Aubameyang just wasn't happy at Arsenal. He was done with playing Premier League football, I think. And I think when you go to a league like La Liga, it's maybe just a bit of a cop-out. It's just a bit of an easier move. Maybe he's get a few more goals, a bit more money. And I think as a result of that as well, Ousmane Dembele might be coming to the Premier League. I know Chelsea have put some interest in him. Aubameyang himself, though, was actually a player that Newcastle were rumoured with. I think there was a loan deal in place, but nothing ever really materialised from it. The thing is, though, Aubameyang is a really, really good player. When he first joined Arsenal, I believe he's the fastest player to reach 50 goals for the club. Golden Boot joint winner with Salah one season as well. So, really good quality player, but just could clearly tell that his day was done in the Premier League and that he didn't really want to be there anymore. So, I think I expected him to leave this transfer window, but maybe it's not to Barcelona.
It's a bit of a weird situation, Jason, isn't it, where Barcelona are signing players. You look at Ferran Torres, they signed him at the start of the window. Didn't register him for a long time because they couldn't. Apparently, a lot of money trouble going on there, but they still spend money on players and bringing them in. In terms of the Aubameyang move, what do you make of him going there, and what sort of player do you think he's going to be over there? Because there was a lot of, he got the captaincy stripped off him at Arsenal. He went on a rogue trip and came back late and things like that. Is there an attitude problem there that Barcelona are going to have to watch themselves?
I don't know about that. I think it's kind of hard to comment on that without actually knowing the player himself. What I will say is that I think the fact that he's leaving is, it's a good thing for Mikel Arteta. It's a show of Arteta's authority at the club. I think that having made the sort of drastic moves that he made, like you're referencing there, stripping him of the captaincy, he hasn't played in God knows how many weeks prior to his exit today. For Arteta to then sort of relent on that and then have him in the squad for the remainder of the season, it would have been maybe a little bit damaging for him, and certainly from a financial point of view as well. He's on sort of £350,000 a week. He's got 18 months left on his contract at the Emirates. It would have ended up costing him somewhere in the region of like £25 million if he stayed. So the fact that he's leaving is a positive thing for Arsenal. I don't think there's any doubting that he's got quality, and he's still got quality to offer as well. I mean, I know he's 32, but we're increasingly seeing, that players the wrong side of 30, so to speak, have still got plenty to offer. And I think that going to a team like Barcelona, where he almost certainly will be the focal point of that attack, I think it'll suit him. There are quality players around him who can really help to support him, but he will very much sort of go then and probably take the mantle of being their leading goal scoring threat. And I think that'll really benefit him. The only thing I would say about the deal is that if there's one sort of downside, it's that Arsenal haven't been able to bring anybody in. I think that going into the second half of the season where they've only really got Alexandre Lacazette and Eddie Nketiah as their sort of striking options maybe isn't ideal for them. That being said, so they were in for sort of Dusan Vlahovic earlier in the window. That didn't materialise and they ended up going to Juventus. I think they're probably better off biding their time and sort of waiting until the summer to maybe get a sort of priority target rather than going and spending over the odds for somebody maybe they're not too keen on. I think a player like Alexander Isaac, there'll probably be someone that they come back to in the summer and maybe try to prize away from Sociedad then. But certainly in terms of like the deal right now, it is a bit of a bizarre one. It's probably one that I imagine we're going to be talking about for quite a while to come, just because of some of the sort of odd details that have gone into it. Like you saying, he sort of ended up in Barcelona just randomly today, and then the deal's gone through sort of after the fact. But yeah, it's probably a deal that ultimately in the end will benefit all parties when the sort of beans are counted at the end of the window, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think Mikel Arteta's the big winner, isn't he, out of this? He's managed to get rid of his captain, or was captain, and get a allegedly bad influence out of the dressing room. Jason, we are saying goodbye to you very shortly, but just before we do, I wanted to ask you who you think the biggest winner in the transfer window has been. If there's a club that you feel maybe has done the best business, it could be anyone across all our divisions. Is there anyone that comes to mind that you think have done fantastic business?
I like what Bournemouth have done today. I think they've gone out and really made a statement of intent. I also, even as a Sunderland fan, have to admit that I like what Newcastle have done. I think that they should have enough to stay up now. Maybe another striker or some sort of creative playmaker would have been ideal if they could have got a deal for Lingard over the line, say. And I think you'd be saying this was pretty much a perfect window for them. But certainly in terms of the players they've brought in, I think you've got to admire what they've done. For me, though, I really like what Aston Villa have done. I think Luca Dean in there and Philippe Coutinho especially, they're two players who just elevate that team to another level. Again, maybe they could have perhaps done with another defensive midfielder, but that's one they'll probably revisit in the summer. But yeah, I think Steven Gerrard's going to do wonderful things at Villa, and I think he's made a real statement of intent by going in there and having a really, really positive January window.
Absolutely. I can't argue with that, mate. Jason, thank you for your time. We probably say goodbye to you at a good time, mate, because we are going to move on to Newcastle United. And I think you've got better things to do with your life, haven't you, than talk about that lot. Sorry, Liam. And Andy will be watching. So, Jason, as I say, thank you very much for your time. And we will see you again very soon. But enjoy the rest of the deadline. Hopefully, you can put your feet up and wait for that glorious picture of Jermaine Defoe with a Sunderland scarf. That'd be a nice way to wrap up, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, lads. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jason. See you soon. Bye, mate. Right, Liam, let's get down to business because you've been itching to talk about Newcastle United. And I didn't want Jason to have to put up with it. Charlie, I'm sorry that you have to. Jonathan, you probably won't be that bothered because you might end up taking Newcastle's place in the Premier League anyway.
Yeah, to be honest.
So, Liam, talk to me about where do we start? Do we start at the beginning with Kieran Trippier, or where do we start?
Yeah, let's start with Kieran Trippier. So that deal, it was actually quite quick the way that deal sort of went over the line. £12 million, a player who still had quite a bit of time left on his contract, a couple of years. 12 million is an absolute bargain for an England international finalist at the Euros. I believe he started that final in the Euros as well. And then, a La Liga winner the previous season. That deal got over the line straight away, and he's played, 3 games now? And he's really showing that he is going to be a future captain at the football club, depending on what happens with Jamal Lascelles. And then who's it that coming next? It was Chris Wood that coming next. Sorry, there's just been so many.
About him, to be honest.
So Chris Wood, he's not hit the ground running yet, I must say. But it's just depth. It's what we needed. Chris Wood, it's £25 million, maybe a bit too much with the situation that you were looking at. But a solid striker, Premier League experience, it is just what we needed. But like I said, he's just not hit the ground running just yet. I think we need to sort of look at the way that we play football at the moment. We have started putting a lot more crosses in. For example, in the FA Cup game, I know Chris Wood didn't play that game, but we put 35 crosses in that game. I think even There was less crosses in the next few games, but we're playing a style of football that is more suited to Chris Wood and sort of taller strikers. Callum Wilson himself is, I believe, he's about 5'11", so he can still head a ball. After that, it was, of course, Bruno Guimaraes. There was a couple of other transfers that unfortunately went by the by. You look at Sven Botman, Diego Carlos, two centre-backs who seemed very keen on joining. Botman was liking pictures of himself on Instagram with him photoshopped into a Newcastle shirt. Diego Carlos put in transfer requests, rejected contract offers from Sevilla to try and join Newcastle. We've got some pulling power, I must say now, David. Unfortunately, like I said, then went by the by, and then Bruno Guimaraes come in. Like I said, a solid passer of the ball, great defensively as well, really, really calm on the ball. Just a solid midfielder, what we needed, because John Joe Shelby's getting on a little bit. Sean Longstaff isn't the quality centre midfielder that we needed in this league, especially if we want to stay up. And then today, alluding onto deadline day, Dan Burn, he's had his deal completely agreed now. It's about £13 million. A centre-back who's been white hot form this season. So, yeah, really happy with that. A local player as well who will be making quite an emotional, I think, move to St James's Park. He was born in Blythe, but he's going to be made in St James's Park. That was meant to be a joke there. But
no, I got that.
You got it? All right.
Born in Blythe. Yeah, I'm getting it, yeah.
Dan Burn is all but announced. He's been at the training ground for a little while. Matt Targett's done. He's joined on a loan as well. Elliot Anderson has left the club. He's gone to Bristol Rovers on loan.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about that because Bristol Rovers, what sort of player are they getting in Elliot Anderson?
So I'll be completely honest. He's not been a player that I've seen a lot of. Adam, who is on the Behind the Leazes podcast, he goes to every single game. He's seen a lot of him and he does rate him really highly. He's been named on the bench a few times, just I think more with the COVID cases in the squad, injuries, things like that. But he has been placed on the bench. He's been that sort of player. So Bristol are definitely getting a good player in Elliot Anderson. A few more players who we did try and get today. Dean Henderson, Bernd Leno were both told that they could leave the club this transfer window, both on loan deals. Well, we're interested. Nothing's come from that, unfortunately. Dele Alli was a player that we did have interest in, but it looks like he is moving to Everton now. Hugo, I'm probably going to butcher his name, Hugo Ekitike, is a player who had a bid accepted for, but just personal terms I don't think were agreed on. And there was a buyback clause, there was a sell-on clause, actually. It was 30% of the deal for his next sale would have gone to Rennes. So unfortunately, once again, that one's gone by the by. And I think just personal things as well. He's a young lad, 19 years old, to have such a big move placed upon him at such a young age, to move country as well. Obviously, it's not what you want to maybe do, but we'll just have to see. Maybe later on in the next transfer window, we can get a player like himself. And then Jesse Lingard as well, of course. It looked like he was dead set on joining us, but Man United just putting in really weird amounts of money on him. And unfortunately, because of other situations outside of football, Manchester United do want to keep him now. So that one, once again, it's gone by the by. But still just waiting on Dan Burn to be announced. But like I said, medical has been done today. So it is all just waiting on an announcement. But a solid transfer window for Newcastle, I must say. I'm really, really happy that we're actually spending money now, and it makes us feel a lot more confident for survival, and then just for the next few years as well. There's clear ambition now looking at this transfer window.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll keep an eye out for when Dan Burn is officially confirmed as the evening goes on. Jonathan, are you getting jealous of all that talk of money down there of Newcastle spending away?
Yeah, and us getting, loans and loan outs and everything like that. Just want to say, Liam did miss one. I was just reading about it, and it links the Midlands up with Newcastle nicely. Matt Taggart on loan from Villa to Newcastle. I'm just reading it. So how do you feel about that, Liam? Matt Taggart,
so I'll be honest, he's not a player that I've seen a lot of, but Aston Villa you know, he's played for Villa in the past couple of seasons. He's been solid in the games that I have seen him playing, but it's just what we need is a little bit of depth. The only thing I'm really worried about is actually being able to register some of these players. I think we are really trying quite rapidly now to try and get rid of some of these players, whether it's on a loan deal. You know, like Charlie said before, Kieran Clark, Jeff Hendrick, both were offered to Middlesbrough, but unfortunately they turned them down. I think Hendrick's going over to QPR now. Like we said, Elliot Anderson, I'm not sure if he was registered or not, but he has gone to Bristol Rovers. Freddie Woodman's gone to Bournemouth, a player who he has played this season, but maybe not shown his best performances, especially that game against Man United. But yeah, Matt Targett, good player from what I've heard and from the little I've seen of him, but it was mainly just for a bit of depth.
Yeah.
I'm just reading about the Liverpool. We spoke earlier on about Liverpool signing Fabio Carvalho, and we said that there was an extension till 1 o'clock. Apparently, that is not the case because he is an EFL player. There's no extension, so Liverpool in a real race against time now. 21 minutes to do a medical and submit paperwork for Fabio Carvalho, and then also complete paperwork for the loan deal to send him back to Fulham for the rest of the season. So. Quite an interesting situation there. I've just seen that Bournemouth have just tweeted still up ? So maybe expect some more action down at Bournemouth coming very, very soon. Other than that, we are just waiting for confirmation on a lot of deals that we've already spoke about throughout the night. Jonathan, for you, what's been your highlight of deadline day? Charlie, I'll come to you in a second. What has been your highlight of deadline day so far?
Well, the highlight from an EFL point of view for me is Preston. They have signed a former Barnsley defender by the name of Bambo Diaby. Now, what's interesting about this is he's returning to football after a 2-year ban for doping. Not sure how you guys feel about like returning players from that type of suspension. But yeah, he used to play for Barnsley and now he is going to Preston on a free transfer because obviously Barnsley terminated his contract because of the 2-year ban. And also a couple of loans out from Aston Villa. Goalkeeper Jed Steer from Villa to Luton on loan. And also, this is basically for experience, a 19-year-old fullback, Kane Kessler, is going to the MK Dons. Also, striker Sam Cosgrove is going from Birmingham to AFC Wimbledon on loan. So a couple of loan players out from the Midlands into League Two, and obviously Jed Steer to Luton. So they're looking to shore up their goalkeeping situation at Kenilworth Road. Also, Lys Mousset of Sheffield United has gone to Serie A team. Now, I'm probably going to butcher this name. Salenternia?
I think it's, Salatanina or something like that.
Salatanina, yeah. So, yeah, Lys Mousset from Sheffield United is going there as well. But what do you guys think about the Bambo Diaby one after 2 years of, being banned from football?
Charlie, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, well, I think if you do something wrong like that, you've served your punishment, haven't you? So you guys may have a different opinion to me, but I believe that you've served your punishment. That is, it's done. You've done it. You've suffered enough by not playing. So now coming back, I guess it's up to the club whether they want to bring in a player like that with that off the back of it. But yeah, look, I think if he's served the time that he's done for what he's done wrong, then there's no reason why he shouldn't come back.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm with you there, mate. If people do things wrong all the time, and as you say, serve this punishment. Let's move on. We have had confirmation that Jermaine Defoe has signed for Sunderland. There's a picture of him with the scarf at the Stadium of Light. So Jason will be very, very happy. A very happy man with his cup of tea this evening. Charlie, for you then, the transfer window, your favourite moment so far of, maybe the best deal that you've seen happen or just the most interesting moment. What's been the highlight so far for you?
Again, from an EFL point, which is what I've tried to obviously follow with it being at Middlesbrough. I think the Bournemouth deals that they've got through, it looks like Todd Cantwell will be their fifth and final signing tonight. As you say, they've tweeted. I was kind of hoping that our admin might tweet that, but it looks like they've probably shut up shop and the lights are out and Chris Wilder's on his way home, presumably. So that's not going to happen in Middlesbrough. But I think Bournemouth, the deals that they've done, it has a Football Manager-esque kind of deadline day signings for them. They've just splashed the cash and managed to get the players in, which I think they were stuttering a little bit. They've not really been on the greatest of run after Christmas, so it's what's needed. I think they've done some good business. Another deal that I was surprised to go through today that I didn't really read about was Josh Madger, who's just signed for Stoke City on loan from Bordeaux. So that's a deal that's kind of gone in under the radar. But yeah, look, Newcastle have done some really good business. I coming from a Middlesbrough fan, I hope they stay up. Partly because if they come down, there's a guarantee that takes one spot out of the automatic places for next year. Because I can't see Newcastle spending more than one season down in the Championship. I think they'll bounce straight back. So that, for me, as a Borough fan that wants to get promoted next season, that takes one less spot out for an automatic place. So I think the deals that Newcastle have done are really good. But again, from an EFL point, very jealous of the deadline day that Bournemouth have had.
Just on that, it is Todd Cantwell now confirmed by Bournemouth. They've just tweeted evening at Todd Cantwell 10 with a waving face. So that one is job done, and that's probably Bournemouth done. We are also seeing Liam that Dan Burn has been confirmed.
Literally just watching the tweet now.
He's been confirmed as a Newcastle United player. Back at his that old chestnut of he had a season ticket as a boy and all that.
Yeah.
It's through that, or are you too deep into the transfer that you eat all that up?
I love all that sort of stuff, David. A local lad. Even Joe Willock, who used to support Newcastle apparently as a kid. You know, I love little stories like that. But no, it's nice because I think that's something we're lacking in. You know, actual Geordies in the squad. I know we've got the Longstaffs, but you know, they're not very good sometimes.
Is one of them going out on loan? Did I read earlier on? Is one of them going on
so
loan?
I'm hearing it's maybe Matty Longstaff going to Mansfield.
Yeah, I thought I read that.
You know, a League Two move for him is really
weird,
really
isn't
good. It is. It's weird, but I think it's really good for him because it's game time and it's a league that he can really show off his skills and how good he is.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit strange considering he was in the Premier League team not too long ago. But there you go. So, yeah, as I say, Dan Burn confirmed. Just trying to see if there's anything else flying about. We are just waiting on a few bits and bobs to be wrapped up. Big one really now is if Liverpool can sign Fabio Carvalho in time before the deadline passes. Is there anything else that you've got your eye on down there, Jonathan?
Well, another one of our academy players has gone out on loan from the club. Owen Wilson is on loan to Carlisle from us. So, yeah, and Ryan Longman from Brighton to Hull for an undisclosed fee. Lewis Warrington has gone on loan from Everton to Tranmere Rovers. So that's going to be some good experience for him. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I'll keep refreshing the transfer deals, and nothing else is coming up at the moment. So
yeah, we seem to have slowed down quite a bit in the last sort of 10, 15 minutes. Everything is now, we either already know about it happening or it's we're just waiting on confirmation.
Of course.
But I mean, we'll see what happens. We still haven't had. I don't think we've had any confirmation of Dele Alli's move to well, what could potentially be Everton or might be Newcastle. Charlie, what do you make of his sort of career? Because he was a massive part of that Tottenham side at one stage, and now he seems to be a bit of a forgotten afterthought, doesn't he? And now he's coming to Everton. What do you make of that move and him?
Him and Jesse Lingard are in a very similar position in terms of they seem to be outcasted at both their clubs. Now, I think it's good that he's got to move away because the one deal that I've been watching quite a lot on stage is Jesse Lingard, and I've been really hoping that he would have left United, but they've not let him go. So Paul from the football club in not letting him go because he just wants to play football. But Dele Alli, he's been let go. Everton have met the valuation, the amount of money that they wanted for him, and fair play, he can go out and play his football, and I think he'll do well under Frank Lampard. I did see that maybe Newcastle were going to hijack that. That would be an incredible turn of events because I think it's probably almost done at Everton. But it's just, I don't know what Everton have only just parted company with Rafa, haven't they? So they must have acted very quickly, and Frank Lampard must have identified him as a target very quickly on as soon as he came in. But again, it's good to see him back playing. He'll get football. He'll get probably a good amount of football under Frank Lampard, and let's hope that he can show the quality that he can possess.
Yeah, what I read a little bit earlier on was they share the same agent, Lampard and Dele Alli. So that's obviously helped, hasn't it? Let's face it, it's clearly helped. But yeah, a very weird one, that, Liam, isn't it? I know Newcastle have tried to hijack that deal, and we still don't really 100% know whether they have or not. There's been no confirmation as of yet. I'd assume Everton are going to sign him. But I mean, for you, would you be happy to see him come in?
Yeah, I mean, Dele Alli. You think Dele Alli, you think the quality player that he was when he first joined Tottenham. He was actually a player that was going to sign for us from NK Dons, but he rejected us and went to Tottenham. So it would have come around full circle, actually. It would have been nice. But no, I think Everton have got a fantastic player on their hands. But what's still 10 minutes to go? You never know. Anything could still happen. Yeah. But I think, according to Fabrizio Romano, probably the most trusted source for things like transfers, he has already signed the contracts, and it's probably just a case of announcing him now.
Yeah, I think Everton took a long time to announce Frank Lampard as manager. I think he took 2 training sessions before he was even announced as the gaffer. Just seeing Nottingham Forest teasing a signing as well to see if we'll keep an eye on who that might be. Nice tweet from Brighton and Hove Albion as well. I don't know whether you've seen this. They've replied to Newcastle's tweet confirming Dan Burn, and Brighton have responded with "Smash it at your boyhood club, Dan. Wishing you all the best."
Yeah,
very
so
classy tweet.
That is very classy, and I think a lot of Brighton fans, they've not been mad, they've not really been bitter about it. I think they have just realised, look, this is probably a once in a lifetime or once in a career move for Dan Burn, just to go back to his boyhood club. So the time is now for him. I'm really happy that we've got that deal over the line, because we were desperate for a centre-back this transfer window, David. It wasn't Sven Botman, it wasn't Diego Carlos, it is Dan Burn. They played Burn Baby Burn on his announcement video. So I'd like that played at St James's Park for the Everton game as well.
Get that played whenever he scores.
Yes, please.
Look, you've got to try and stay up. That's your main aim. And you're probably not going to sign big name players. I know you've got Kamara, Jim, but you're probably not going to sign massive players at this stage. Just reading here, there was a bit of talk about Ousmane Dembele potentially going to Chelsea. Apparently Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea, Paris Saint-Germain and others, according to David Ornstein, have been offered them. But obviously, I think time is pretty much running out for that to happen.
So with that being said, David, he is out of contract at the end of the season. So
yeah,
it might be a case of they just do contract talks with him. If they accept something, he joins at the end of next season or at the start of next season, sorry.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, strange things about haven't they? So possibly. I'm just reading here that the EFL have rejected Liverpool's extension sheet to get the deal done for Fabio Carvalho. So there's 8 minutes left for that to go through. And I've seen people tweeting like, I haven't watched transfer deadline day and scanned through Twitter all day for 13 hours for the EFL to completely mess up Liverpool's transfer business. I do find that quite odd. But I'm just trying to see. It says that the EFL is causing problems with the deal sheet extension. That's why it's not being permitted and approved up to now. It might just be a case that obviously Liverpool don't really do much dealing with the EFL. I don't know. I'm guessing. Anything else on any of your radars, guys, before we keep going and looking at what's going on?
I think.
Go on, Charlie.
The only one I was looking was obviously the Jermaine Defoe one. He'd obviously put something on his Instagram, so that deal looks set to go through. And I think there was one for Luke Freeman as well from Sheffield United. It looks like he may be leaving the club. That deal, I think they're just trying to get through to get over the. That'll go on loan as well. And I think Sheffield United have also had an offer for Xander Berger rejected as well. That was on loan. So United are staying put with the squad that they've got, and it now looks just like once the deal has been sorted for Jermaine Defoe, the EFL will be near enough wrapped up for this transfer window.
Yeah, as long as they get Fabio Carvalho sorted, give us a 2-hour extension. That'll be nice. Bit of a weird one, Sander Berger, isn't it, Liam? I mean, he joined Sheffield United when they were in the Premier League, and he stayed there with them in the Championship. Are you surprised that he hasn't moved on?
Yeah, I must say I'm surprised he didn't move. Maybe it's the January that they're in the Premier League when we sort of knew that they were going down, I'll be honest. A player with so much potential. It's such a shame. Well, I wouldn't say it's a shame, but it's weird to see him stay in the Championship. Clearly, maybe he's had a bit of faith in the process for them to just come straight back up. But unfortunately, the way that it seems, that's not going to be the case for them. So I think a move now is probably best for him, even if it is just a loan move.
Yeah, I'm just reading here now that a second deal sheet has been submitted to the EFL from Liverpool. We'll keep you informed with that as it goes. That's pretty much the only thing that we've got left to wait. Obviously, we've got a few things that we can that are going to be confirmed, particularly like the likes of Dele Alli and things like that. But we will keep an eye on anything else that's occurring.
Just looking as well, Rochdale, who have had a fantastic transfer window, they've put signing number 5 in. James Ball from Solihull Moors, midfielder, signed a 2.5-year deal.
Plenty of eyes across this league. I like it. We're going down as far as Rochdale. Love it. That's what we're all about.
Got to look at it. So I've got me affiliations with Rochdale.
Oh yeah, that's why he's mentioning it.
That's it.
That's why he's mentioning it. Again, we're just. This is a really, really. I'm going to say desperate moments. Probably not desperate being the right word, but the anxiety maybe of this. I don't. Obviously, the deal must be close to being done, but there's something going on with the EFL that could potentially see this deal fall apart.
I just want to say as well, just reading, Stoke City, they've made their 5th signing of this window. They've had a decent window. Stoke have. They've signed Josh Major from Bordeaux. And obviously, they already signed Taylor Harwood-Bellis, Phil Jagielka, who is very well known, Lewis Baker, and Jaden Bidace. So, yeah, Stoke have had a pretty decent window, it's got to be said. So they've brought in their 5th signing of the window, Josh Major from Bordeaux.
There's a lot of competition for the playoff places as well, isn't he? And I think Stoke got it sort of in and around there as well.
Yeah.
It's very early, obviously, to predict who's going to finish in there because, as you two well know, Charlie and Jonathan, the Championship's a very unpredictable league. I mean, Fulham might be top now; they might end up 6th. Anything could happen. So you've got to reinforce when possible, haven't you?
Absolutely.
It's a very anxious wait at the moment here, gents. We're just waiting for.
I can tell you're on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, a little bit. It's not even that big of a deal. Like, if it was Luis Diaz, I'd dread to think what I'd be like then. But
how are you feeling for Luis Diaz joining?
Good, mate. Yeah. I think.
Quality.
Yeah, we said a bit earlier on. One of the lads on the Shankly Gates podcast, Dan, has been saying for a while that he thinks Mane needs some form of competition, particularly how poor he's been this season. And so to get that in is massive. I also think, it's nice to see we've had him in mind, and then Spurs have come in and we've just gone no, like we'll have him. That used to be the way round. Liverpool would be.
I've got to ask you as well. What's the crack with Salah's contract?
I don't know. I really don't know. I assume he's got to be. It's got to be done. It's really got to be done. It's got to be wrapped up. I just think it's a stumbling block of the wages. They don't want to pay him £300,000 a week, and you've got Van Dijk on maybe 180, for example, and he's just signed the contract, and you're sort of like, well, Van Dijk could then say, well, what's all this about? Like, you know, so it's tough in terms of the dynamic. I'm just reading that Everton are not worried about Dele Alli transfer. The deal is done. Only small deals. Bailey. Go on, Jonathan.
Alan Shearer has just put on his Twitter account, "Welcome home, Dan." So, in reference to Dan Burn from Brighton. So, yeah, huge praise from a Newcastle legend like Alan Shearer. So, yeah, good luck to Dan Burn up there at Newcastle.
Good luck to Dan Burn. It's a nice story. I like a nice story.
It is, yeah.
It is a nice story. It's
when you get Shearer's seal of approval, you know.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah,
he's like a god up there, isn't he, Liam?
Yeah,
he is. Yeah, a man that I've had the fortune of meeting. He is God.
He seems like a really.
I was gonna say he is God. He's like a god.
He is God.
You know, he is God. Well, some people will actually say that about him, but no, an absolute hero. And like I said, it's just good to have another local lad playing for Newcastle. It's something that we've not had in ages.
Yeah, when was the last one? Paul Dummett, maybe, would you count?
Paul Dummett, yeah. So he's Welsh nationality, Geordie born, though. Jack Colback, obviously the Longstaffs as well. I think before that, you're looking at, well, Shearer himself, probably. Or, probably Alan Shearer or Andy Carroll, of course.
Yeah.
Right. Well, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, the transfer window is closed. It is done and dusted. And now we anxiously await to see if an EFL deal sheet has been put in. We've literally got no idea whether the deal sheet was submitted in time or not. Nobody has got a clue. We do not know what is happening. It's just pure suspense at the moment. We'll wait and see what happens. Obviously, the deals such as like the likes of Dele Alli and anything else that we're waiting on, I'm assuming the Premier League will have sorted that well in advance. And I think, you know, as we said, Everton are quite slow when it comes to announcing things. So it might be a case of that gets announced tomorrow. Don't be surprised if stuff gets announced overnight and things like that. But yeah, I mean, we'll stick around for the next 10 or so minutes and just see what happens. But let's see. I can't even think straight with this. It's got me nerves wrecked. Jonathan, I'll ask you. I asked Jason a little bit earlier on whether he thought what he thought was the best. Who had the best window, and I think he mentioned Bournemouth. I don't know if you're gonna agree with that, but who for you has had the best window?
Well, from a local standpoint, Aston Villa have had a really decent window. You know, Diagne, Coutinho. They've offloaded a few players to other clubs on loan. So, yeah, from a local standpoint, Aston Villa, I mean, the Gerrard factor, it's got to be said. You know, he has done wonders with Aston Villa at the moment, and it pains me as a West Bromwich Albion fan to say that. But, yeah, other than that, Newcastle, really, really good window for them. Obviously, Liam will agree. Dan Burn, what a signing. Obviously, you got Chris Wood, who's a former striker of ours. And, yeah, also, you know, statement of intent from Bournemouth, you know, with both myself and Charlie as promotion rivals to Bournemouth. We're looking at them and we're seeing that, yeah, they've slipped off a little bit because they were like early contenders for promotion. But yeah, they kind of had a few bad results, and yeah, that's a big statement of intent from them, signing no less than 5 players. Yeah. So yeah. Also, I want to touch on Donny van der Beek from Man U to Everton on loan. To be honest, like Lingard, Van der Beek was a bit unsettled at Man U, so yeah, that's a coup for Everton in my book, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm just seeing that we mentioned earlier on that Newcastle had, sorry, not Newcastle. My brain is fried. Nottingham Forest had tweeted to sort of suggest someone had signed. It was Sam Surridge in the end that are signed there from Stoke. If that's of interest to you. I think Aubameyang has been confirmed. I'm just trying to see if Aubameyang's move to Barcelona has been confirmed. But still no word on this deal sheet, gents. So we'll keep waiting. But Charlie, for you, who's doing the big winner of the transfer window?
I think I don't think Newcastle are, if I'm honest with you. I just think because that it was a given that they were going to bring players in. You know what I mean? That it was a given. They were going to do it because they've got the money there. They can do it. I think Bournemouth have done really well, but I think that heaps a lot of pressure now on Scott Parker. I think he's got a lot of pressure on him now because they've backed him. So realistically, anything but promotion now is not good enough for them. Villa, again, I think they've had a really good window. Clearly, they've brought in the players and the quality that we know that Aston Villa can. And you know, I think Bournemouth are probably up there. They've set the precedent now of what they've set the level of what they want, and I think they'll challenge Fulham. I don't think Fulham will drop off. I think Fulham are too good. They've not brought a player in, I don't think, in this window, so they don't really need to bring a player in. They don't need goals, and they're in a really good position. But Bournemouth have surprised me to get it all through, and again, another a deal as well that's for Crystal Palace with Mateta as well. He's him staying on for them. It's not a big deal, but it's clearly a deal that they're happy to keep on board. So yeah, there's been a couple of decent deals for Burnley though. I think they'll get in that. I think it's Wout Weghorst. I think he could be the 6 striker. He looks a really good player as well. I like with Chris Wood. So you never know for them. I think they're going to be struggling this season, but I think Bournemouth, I'd be expecting them to really run away with it now in the latter stage of the Championship season with the players that they've brought in.
Jonathan, I'm just seeing that West Brom have tweeted that they've parted ways with Robert Snodgrass by mutual consent. What's your instant reaction to that?
Well, I'm really not surprised. I mean, like I said earlier, the way the manager was putting out the tactics and the squad, Snodgrass was a firm opposer to that. So, to be honest, I'm really not surprised that Snodgrass will no longer be an Albion player. To be honest, there was speculation with Sam Johnston as well. To be honest, I was half expecting a statement on him. He hasn't featured in the last few games, despite being back from suspension. So hopefully Sam Johnston will feature for Albion very soon. But yeah, Robert Snodgrass, he was, it was no secret that he opposed the kind of football that Valérien Ismaël was trying to put onto the squad. Obviously, like I said, this has been like one of the worst weeks in the club's history. Same tactics, no plan B, and we lose 2-0 to both Preston and Millwall. Robert Snodgrass leaving Albion really doesn't surprise me, to be honest.
Yeah, it's has he been there for a while now?
He's been there for a couple of years. Yeah.
Seems like a bit of a stalwart, and who knows? I mean, I think he's got till March to sign as a free transfer, hasn't he, to sign somewhere else. Liam, I'll come to you now, and you've had a bit of extra time there to think about who maybe your answer might be, but who for you has been the biggest winners out of the transfer window? And you're not allowed to say Newcastle United. Bad.
Well, you've got to think it now, David.
I think in time, and I've just wrecked it for you.
You've got to look at Aston Villa, I think, in the Premier League, getting them players in very quietly, I must say, as well. Callum Chambers, they did it with Danny Ings in the summer window as well. I don't know how they do it. But yeah, just vital players that, really show, I think, firstly, Gerrard's pulling power. They were linked with Suarez. I think they nearly got him at one point in the window. Looking down towards the Championship as well, Stoke, Bournemouth, two sides that are looking for promotion. I think Stoke dropped off a little bit in the sort of second half of the first half of the season, if you understand what I've gone for there. But these clubs are going for either playoffs, they're going for promotion. just little signings that are really going to help them just strengthen the squad a little bit. I think Todd Cantwell to Bournemouth is a fantastic coup. You know, I hate to keep mentioning Newcastle, but a player that was on Newcastle's books and a player who apparently was set to sign for us. He's gone on loan at Bournemouth. It's a fantastic signing for them. So yeah, I definitely say I think Bournemouth in the Championship, for example, have had the best transfer window there.
Yeah, hard to disagree with that, to be fair. They've had a really good transfer window. I'm just seeing that a deal sheet is in for Dele Alli. Not the news I wanted, but deal sheet is in for Dele Alli. And he will become Lampard's second signing at Everton. Let me just have a quick scan through and see if there's anything.
Also, I'm just reading on the Dan Burn transfer to Newcastle that due to a sell-on clause, Wigan is going to get a 15% sell-on from that move. So Wigan's going to profit a little bit from Dan Burn going to Newcastle as well.
It's about £1.6 million, I think, in that
Something
case.
like that, yeah.
Oh, right. The Carvalho deal is off.
Is it?
So it says that the transfer hinged on the player being loaned back for the remainder of the season, but there are no deal sheets in the EFL, and an agreement wasn't finalised by 11 o'clock. That's coming out from Paul Joyce and David Lynch and all the major journalists. So at least that is our transfer deadline date done. We now know that it's the deal's off. And you know what? He's on a free in the summer. Liverpool have probably just wound Fulham up, and we'll wait till the summer and we'll just get him for nothing, which is great. And everyone will be annoyed. Fantastic. Love it. Speaking of the summer, gents, is there anyone that you think in this transfer window maybe did move, or is there a rumour that you think he's seen that might end up happening in the summer? I mean, I'll go first. And there was obviously Dominic Calvert-Lewin's been linked away from Everton quite a lot this year. And the rumours are that Arsenal are going to sign him in the summer. I personally don't know where he fits in to Arsenal's system. They were obviously they've got rid of Aubameyang, and that frees up some space in the squad, but he's a totally different player compared to Aubameyang. And I don't know whether I'm not saying he's a bad footballer as such, but I don't know whether he's an Arsenal player. I don't know whether he's got that ability in him to play in the Arsenal way. He seems like a bit more of a target man who likes to hold things up, and he scores a fair few goals as well, to be fair to him, but that's not really how Arteta likes to play. So that seems like a little bit of a weird one for me, but if it does go through, it gives Arsenal a good target man and a bit of a battering ram up front. So it could potentially be one to watch for the summer. Liam, I'll come to you as the one that you've got your eye on for maybe happening in the summer.
I think you've got to look at the likes of Ousmane Dembele, a player who was told he can leave Barcelona this transfer window. Like I said before, he is out of contract at the end of the season, so he could literally go anywhere that he wants to now. I think Chelsea was the big name that were looking at him. Tottenham, Arsenal as well. All big clubs looking to get his signature. Paris Saint-Germain at some point today were looking to sign him. Another player as well who there was an offer rejected for him. I believe it was yesterday or the day before. Calvin Phillips had an offer from West Ham. It was rejected by Leeds. It was about £50 million. So I think Leeds' stance was clear in that case, but you never know in the summer. Money does definitely talk. But of course, with Calvin Phillips being sort of quite emotionally tied to Leeds, I maybe wouldn't see it happening as easily as some other deals would.
Yeah. Charlie, for you?
Well, yeah, before I give you that, I just read about Tom White, I think it is, at Sky Sports, saying that if Jermaine Defoe signs for Sunderland in this window, he'll get transfer talks tattooed on his body. So I think he's probably feeling a little bit nervy now, sat watching the dead on day. But obviously, I think Jermaine Defoe is a free agent, so he can sign whenever he wants. I think that's what the general consensus is on Twitter. But again, Dembele is someone that you'd want to be looking for in the summer. I think now that Aubameyang's gone, Arsenal have to turn their attention to someone in the summer. They have to really look to get someone in, because it's whether Lacazette and Nketiah can get them through to the summer. That'll be the question, with them letting Aubameyang go. But I think for them, that would be an interesting one. I'd also be interested to see whether Todd Cantwell goes permanent to Bournemouth. I think there's an option to buy there. So you'd presume that if they do the swap and Bournemouth go up and Norwich come down, that they may offload him to them. Bournemouth may take him on. So that'd be one to keep an eye on. But I'd expect Chelsea to go in for Dembele in the summer. It's just whether or not Tuchel survives till the summer, really, because he's obviously under a little bit of pressure now, and another player coming in will heap even more pressure on him.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it, how Tuchel can be under pressure. He won the Champions League last year. Give the man some chance to do his thing. Jonathan, I'm just looking. Stoke City have tweeted something, but I don't know whether it's of any interest. We'll keep an eye on that. Hull have also tweeted live scenes of admin in the office with a typing GIF. So still some bits flying around. Yeah. But for you, looking ahead to the summer, is there a deal that you think maybe didn't go ahead tonight that may be looking ahead towards the summer and going ahead then?
Well, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the Jesse Lingard situation at Manchester United. Obviously, Manchester United, as we know, categorically said that Jesse Lingard was not leaving this window. So it'd be interesting to see, A, if they start playing Jesse Lingard between now and the end of the season, and B, whether he will go and leave Old Trafford in the summer. Also, speaking of Manchester United, and I think I touched on this a few weeks ago, and also it was featured on an earlier video in this podcast. John McGinn apparently is lined up for a move from Aston Villa to Manchester United. So, it'd be interesting to see how Manchester United play the summer transfer window as well. It could be one in, one out with McGinn and Lingard. I'm going to be keeping a close eye on that, as well as any transfers from the Albion, to be honest. But I'm not really holding my breath for the Albion at the moment, because all we do is really loan deals. And the majority of the deals we've done today has been loans out for the academy players. So,
just keep the faith, mate. Keep the faith. I think the other ones that we need to look for as well is, like, will Haaland potentially go this summer? He's got a release clause in his deal at Dortmund, hasn't he? That could potentially be activated, and there'll be plenty of suitors across the country, across the world, waiting for him. And obviously Mbappe, I think his contract runs out this summer. He's now available sort of on a free transfer. Teams can now talk to him and get him to agree a pre-contract deal. And of course, Liverpool going after Carvalho is now, it looks like it's going to go to a tribunal. See if they sign him. Gentlemen, I think we'll call it a night. I think we'll call it a night there. It's been 3 hours and 21 minutes. It's been an absolute pleasure with all the guests that we've had tonight. We've had journalists on from Manchester World, Michael Plant. We had Will Rooney from Liverpool World. We had Jason Jones from National World. We were supposed to have someone from Newcastle World, but we haven't had them join us, and we're now wrapping up. So, typical you're at your end of the country, Liam, just letting us down as ever.
Unreliable, eh?
Unreliable. No, you're all here. So thank you to the three of you for joining us, and all of our fans as well throughout the night. Even Paul, who couldn't get his headset to work. But no, we have Mike and Dom. I'm trying to remember everyone. Mike and Dom, Bernard, Kai, Billy. Have I forgot anyone there? I don't think I have. If I have, I sincerely apologise, because you all mean a lot to us. So thank you everyone for joining us. Deadline day is now done and dusted. 3 hours and 20 odd minutes later, we are. Everyone's very happy, or either not very happy. But it's time to go to bed and potentially wake up in the morning to some more news of the likes of Dele Alli. I can't think of any other deals that are being waiting on coming through. Enjoy the rest of the evening, gentlemen. It's a pleasure as ever to see you. We will be back with another deadline day, the next deadline day, the end of August. So do join us for that. In the meantime, you can tune into the Box to Box podcast tomorrow night on local TV. And obviously you can join into all of our local podcasts across the cities: Liverpool, Everton, Manchester United, Manchester City, Newcastle, Leeds, all sorts going on across the cities if you need to fill your podcast fix throughout the week. But thank you for watching in any way, shape or form tonight. Thank you to all of our guests and contributors. We appreciate it. See you in August. Nice, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.